because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Midnight's Edge in the morning. The week is over, and it was yet another week of hell for Disney. Can you believe it? Only this week, it was a week of hell for Sweet Baby Inc. and the establishment of video gaming too. So that is new. That is always interesting to hear, and we'll be talking about that and everything else that has happened. Joining me to do that is my co-host Tom Connors. Good morning, there, sir.
All right.
We are also joined by Cultured Casino.
Good morning, everybody. It's a wonderful Friday, and we are headed into a great weekend.
We are indeed. And down south on the screen, but up north in reality, we have, representing Canada, Mr. Paul Chato.
Hello. We're actually farther south than people believe.
Yeah. We're
Most
inside
places
the
are
United States.
Yeah.
I think we're farther south than Spain, even.
No. That
Nope.
I do not think. No. New York is about the same place as Spain, and you are north of
Okay.
New York. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Not
Yeah.
much.
So, but you are relatively far south by European standards. When I'm in Norway,
Correct.
which I usually am, I am much further north.
And what would you guys do without the Gulf Stream? Let me tell you. You better hope the Gulf Stream never diverts.
Even more of the year shoving snow than we do as it is right now, which is already quite a bit of the year. So yeah. Also representing the cold white north is Script Doctor.
Yes, it's north, but it's also north of 0 in the temperature wise here. So that's a good sign. Where spring is on the horizon.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one takes what one can get. And before we get into the main topics, we have lost someone in the world of entertainment, which of course we spoke about before we went live here, and also this occupies many of you in the stream. It's represented by Red Midnight Batman, who says for $5 yesterday we lost a legend, Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Quest. He passed away at the age of 68. May he rest in peace. Kelechi also signed in for $5. Rest in peace, Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball, Dragon Quest, and many other IPs. It was his anime that popularized the genre in the West. Hypergiver 2 also says for $2, rest in peace, Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball. So, gentlemen, we also got this from Glade Riven, who also said, rest in peace, Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball and concept artist for Dragon Quest / Warrior. It was first on the Nintendo and many others. Now, Chato, I know that you probably are familiar with Toriyama's work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's of a genre that's not my favorite genre, and I would suggest that maybe Dragon Ball wasn't the gateway drug to anime in North America. That would be Speed Racer. So I would take issue with that comment. But yes, what a huge franchise. And again, it's this wonderful Japanese thing where they also had trading cards, just the whole ball of wax, right? I mean, it was brilliantly marketed. It was a lot of fun. It's in that Narita class of crazy short people, muscular anime.
Yeah. Any of you gentlemen have any memories of Toriyama's creations?
Well, I think Dragon Ball and Super are two things that I think people are now wondering what will happen. I think that's at this you can celebrate it all and enjoy it all, and it's certainly it's there to be enjoyed. But I think what the future holds is now very much in doubt, and I'm not sure there was an outline for moving forward on what's been going on recently. So
That's pretty much the case with any anime property. The owner of the IP generally does it until they retire or die. I mean, they have complete control over their own IP. I don't know name me an anime that got transferred over to another individual or a manga.
I think it just would be very. I think it would be very sad to not have an ending. So, but we're in a similar situation as with Berserk, I think. But I guess we'll find out. So, but R.I.P. indeed. So, for those of you out there in the audience, I did talk about that a little bit this morning. So, it was that Vic Mignogna came out, and you can find his statement about it on Twitter. If you want to look up his Twitter, Vic Mignogna said something very kind, and I mean, Jackie Chan posted something on the Chinese Weibo app. I mean, this is somebody who touched all cultures.
And it was a huge property too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will not pretend to be too familiar with the property myself, but obviously I recognize just how big the property was, how many fans it had, and the passion of the fan base. So my condolences to his family, to his friends, and all of his fans everywhere. It's a shame that because I know that he had many stories left in him. There were no plans of any kind of stop. So I hope that someone will be able to carry on the baton and finish up what he started in a way that will be in line with his work. And it's almost always a shame when someone departs, especially when they do it so suddenly. So also the Waltman 4 says for $4.99, man, Dragon Ball was part of my life growing up when it was on Toonami. Rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. Yes, indeed. And let's see if we have any more topics on.
Don't watch the live movie.
Topic.
Oh yeah.
No, that's generally solid advice when it comes to anime. One Piece excluded from that. But let's go back to the rest of the super chats before we dive into the main topics of the day. Dr. Longdongler sent us a super sticker. Everyone, please smash that like. Help everyone know that we are live. Share out the stream. Callum Lyle says for $5 Australian, accounts on Twitter are being flagged, including mine, who are speaking out against Sweet Baby Inc. Something's going on. Okay. Yeah, we will get into that before long here. We do have some Sweet Baby Ink stuff to discuss today. Jason Webster also said for $5 news. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 has won Best Foreign Language Film at the 47th Japan Academy Prize. Okay, that's cool. I really
Makes
enjoyed
sense. I didn't
Dead
understand
Reckoning.
anything about that movie.
Dead Reckoning Part 1?
Yeah, that was a foreign film joke. Not even
Okay.
Paul got it.
Yeah. Leave it to the foreign guy to not get the foreign jokes.
Nobody got it. It was a horrible joke, evidently. I quit. I'm going back to bed.
All right. Meanwhile, we have some more super chats here. Callum Lyle says for $5 I said was what I said was fix MJ's face and ungay black cat, and I fell out with Gore because he thinks I'm dumb for liking you Empire. How about don't see it, Gore? Okay, feel like I just walk into some kind of argument that I know nothing about. so yeah, I suggest taking it up with Gore, but I'll send him a copy of the super chat if you want. But beyond that, I have no idea what you're talking about, if I'm completely honest. And Montaro has been a member for 20 months, and we thank you. And Rico Zorro has been a member for 27 months, which is also awesome. Alabama Wyatt says for $5, DEI is just one aspect of a global psyop. The purpose? The defilement of Western society. Covers politics, economics, education, entertainment, and more. And yeah, I can't. I'm not going to disagree with that in any way, shape, or form. I'm curious because Chato, you had a friend who had some other DEI horror stories. Is that something you can share more about by now?
I'm in the middle of writing it and having it vetted by this individual, so it won't reveal the sources. So yes, it's a quite a story around how an animation school has been affected by what's happening in women in animation and Hollywood and everything else. So the dog is wagging the tail, and unfortunately has had a profound effect on the school, the people that they're bringing in, and the kind of work that they're doing. It's a traditional school. They actually, before you move on to 3D animation, you have to do rigorous cell animation courses. And yeah, it's an interesting story. So that's what I'm in the middle of. Sorry for being so cryptic, but I have to be super careful about this particular story. But it'll be good once I get it out.
Yeah. And but I'm glad that it's getting out, because more people seem to be aware of the horrors of DEI and what it in reality encompasses. Both in the real world at large, there appears to be some level of critic mass, but also in the realm of entertainment. Our good friends over at Film Threat have done some excellent exposés covering Disney in particular and Disney animation. And I do believe that your story is going to fit in very well with that.
Oh, yes. Yes, this is mostly from students who no longer feel that they're getting proper training. That's really the angle. That's where it's coming from. Students, I talked with them and said, do you really want me to name the school and shame them? They went, yes. They want to bring it down because they think it's a lost institution now. And it was maybe the top in North America. So these students that I'm talking to I really feel that they've wasted their money.
And they probably have. And I mean, not only will they not get called person, they're not going to get job either. Like, if they're white, they're not going to get any jobs because they'll be DEI'd out of it.
Yeah.
No,
that's an interesting part to this.
Yeah.
So, well, overall, animation is both popular and also hard. I mean, people are not being paid for the animation that they're doing. I have to, I could talk to Paul Rivoche, who's a good friend of mine, who's nominated along with Robot Dreams, which is a Spanish animated movie, for an Academy Award. He did all the backgrounds for Robot Dreams. It's a really wonderful cartoon. So you being in Spain, you should know about Robot Dreams. It won the Goya Award. Now it's up for an Academy Award. So look it up.
Yeah, I will. And speaking of awards, Jason Webster sent for $5 news. The Boy and the Heron has won Best Animated Film at the 47th Japan Academy Prize. So yeah, that's awesome. Then we have another winner in addition to Mission Impossible. Well earned, I take. Again, speaking on the topic of animation, or certainly animation adjacent, bringing us into Disney here. Patrick Robinson says for $9.99, Bambi live action remake has lost its director and Sword in the Stone live action remake has been put on hold. Is this the end of the remakes? I hope so.
No.
And this is probably news that happened between the transition between the two individuals who
exactly.
One person got fired.
Can you find that story up about the most recent high-profile firing that we had in Disney? Because I believe that may tie into the story. Yeah, that too. That too. Because there was another executive firing in Disney earlier this week. Just as Iger is under threat from Nelson Peltz and desperately has to show that they're doing something, they did a high-profile firing. Let's see if I think that culture may be a way. So I have to find the story as well here. Or script.
Anybody see the? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh well, I know Sarah Polley left Bambi. And that's not a surprise to me because Sarah Polley is a relatively experienced.
Our Sarah Polley?
Yes, our Sarah Polley, a competent and good director. And I didn't believe for a second that Disney would keep her on because they don't hire and maintain competent and good directors. So I wasn't too surprised by that. Who else was the guy that left?
Sean Bailey.
She does like movies about depressing stuff, though.
Mm-hmm. But she's good at doing it.
Yeah, she's very good.
Yeah, and
she's a very talented person.
This story doesn't read the way it should. What they should have said, this should not say Sean Bailey out as production president. It should say Sean Bailey fired, and his door prize on the way out is to be in charge or produce Tren.
Fantastic. So basically the standard, let's get rid of the executive by making them producers and giving them a producer deal where most of their movies will never go anywhere. That kind of firing, is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, David Greenbaum went immediately into replacing him. Like there was no passing go, no collecting $200. Like I said, his exit prize is I keep saying that, being the producer for Tron 3.
Yeah. So. In other words, David Greenbaum was recruited, and then when they had him, it was just a matter of getting rid of Sean Bailey. Now, do you think that may have something to do with this change-up that we just saw in live-action movies, with one being put on hold? And that's kind of touch upon this, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I truly believe is what actually happened. So, and when you look at this again, they didn't have to go very far to get Greenbaum. He was sitting over there at 20th Century Studios, or Searchlight, excuse me. So they didn't have to go very far to collect him. So, so after 15 years of live action destruction, they finally got rid of him. And again, I mean, he did produce some things that did rather well. I mean, this is the guy that live actioned it up. When you look at Alice in Wonderland, Maleficent, Jungle Book, Lion King live action, Beauty and the Beast live action, Aladdin, that's all him. But then of course they strayed away from the shot for shot remakes and got deteriorating results.
Yeah, only last year we had the Little Mermaid, which did okay in the US. I stress that it did okay in the US. It didn't do bangbusters, but it did okay. And that's the only place it did, because it absolutely tanked literally everywhere else on the planet. Not one single market did it do anything other than underperform outside of the US. So that probably may have something to do with this, and may mark a shift in strategy. If you were to guess, based on what we know so far, what do you think that David Greenbaum might do different, other than obviously not the Bambi live-action remake, which has lost its director? Who knows? Maybe it still can be Chato and Kennedy Fight and starring a chick who is gay.
Baby, can't put a chick in it, make her gay.
Exactly. Or who knows what's going to happen with the Sword in the Stone remake? Maybe it's dead forever. Maybe they'll go completely away from it. We know Nelson Peltz certainly was not a big fan of Disney recycling their content the way that they have been doing. Do you think that this might indicate some kind of new direction?
Well, I think
how
Alan,
much power do you think he has?
Quite a lot. I mean, he directly reports to Alan Greenberg. Bergman. Why do I always do that? Alan Bergman. Gosh, why do I always do that? Anyway, yeah. So I think he probably has quite a bit of power. They put a lot of faith in him, and he's got a pretty decent background. I mean, this is a guy that came up through unfortunately Miramax. That's kind of a bad thing, but there's a lot of Miramax people at Disney. Anyway,
they
like
bought Miramax.
Yeah, well, yeah, and the former personal assistant that made the Acolyte, But anyway, if you go up through it, he's got a background with films like The Shape of Water, The Favorite, Black Swan. He kind of led things like No Country for Old Men, There Will Be Blood. He's got experience that they sorely need, kind of on the ground kind of things. But I like you said, I mean, pretty much in script, correct me if I'm wrong, this year most of what Disney's releasing is from the Fox deal, right? Because it's coming out of Searchlight and
I think so, yeah. I mean, Steve Asbell, who's head of Fox, but head of 20th Century Studios, has now got to report to a new person that's above him. That's been a change that Disney has instituted, which I think is foolish. But yeah, some of their back catalog is slowly being pushed out to fill some of the absent theatrical spots that they weren't able to make because of last year's strike. So we'll probably be getting more details on those as the weeks pass.
Yeah, and I think well, I mean, one of those films is like this, the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, right? That's coming out here soon. That was it was under Fox's.
That's under the 20th Century label, yes.
Yeah. So I think Disney's just backfilling, as you suggest, but it looks like they're still up and running with things like Mufasa. I mean, that's another live action recook.
Yeah,
although
I don't think anything's going to happen to that one, because The Lion King did more than $1 billion, didn't it? So
yeah,
so it makes fiscal sense to do Mufasa, but I do believe it may blow up in their face depending on the kind of messaging that they inject into it. And with modern day Disney, I mean, I do not necessarily expect it to star a chick who is gay, but I do expect it to have found some other way to really subvert everything the original Lion King was all about.
Well, I think the real question, again, Mufasa's already cooked and ready to go, but I think the question is going to come into, obviously, you guys were talking about the Sarah Polley feature, but with that was live action Bambi, right? Yeah, I think. Yeah. So, but it does put into question: are they going to dump another $200 million into Snow White? Are they going to move forward on live action Moana? And are they going to move forward on Lilo and Stitch, which were all three things that were in development at various stages? I mean, reportedly, the Snow White stuff was done. They were only going to go back for reshoots, but that seems to have a different story behind it. Anyway, it's just interesting. But yeah, this is another high profile move at Disney that does indicate they have very poor leadership, and they're trying to backfill to maybe
the
support what they've
starkest
got.
the Fox deal, the starkest aspect of it, it's clear that Fox was in the movie business and Disney wasn't. They were just they're a studio. They made movies. Disney doesn't. And so the question I have, maybe a script can answer this. Has Fox been shut down and they're just finishing off what is in the pipeline, or is it a separate business unit that continues to make movies?
It's so hard to determine right now because for all intents and purposes, it feels like 20th Century Studios is shuttered because we're not really seeing a whole lot of titles coming out in the frequency that we used to when Fox owned the studio. They're few and far between. And when you get a handful of 20th Century Studio productions, it's hard to say since the acquisition of Fox, like how many movies can you actually attribute to what was used to be Fox since they were
and they shut a bunch of stuff down when they took over, right? Anything that wasn't X far into production got shut down. For instance, Die Hard 6. I'm trying to remember a couple other ones, but then again, those are movies now they're talking about dusting off again too. So that's just it. I mean, it's a good question, Paul. Who knows where the ones that were already in production or pre-shot or already shooting before compared to
here's another
shelved. I mean,
But here's, again, another stupid question from me is why not just let Fox continue doing what they did? Like, I don't understand why Disney wouldn't just leave them alone. But maybe that's a
you've explained many times why a company wouldn't leave another company it acquires alone. So it's the same kind of reason, especially in Hollywood. I mean, it's a fair question because ideally, the smartest thing a big corporation could do when they acquire a small one is basically says, okay, now we're just going to take our piece of the profits. You keep doing what you're doing. And they just walk away. But they don't do that.
No.
So that's part of the issue here. I mean, I wish 20th Century Fox was putting out more stuff. I mean, they were much like to Universal and Warner Brothers at their peaks. They were a good studio to go to that supported creatives. Disney was always, what's the IP that we can adapt to make it a Disney brand? What's the thing that we can do to drive people to our parks? What's the thing we can do to drive people to buy our stuff? That's an okay business model that works for Disney, but it doesn't work for the rest of the studio where their entire job is to create entertainment and then find every single way as possible to sell it in different forms after each IP has been released. And they're constantly looking for creative people to come in and fill in the gaps, help them make lots of money. And that mentality doesn't really work with Disney because they don't like to reach outside of Disney to do things of that nature. They like to take a look at what they currently own and remarket that over and over again. And that was Disney's model for at least since the mid 90s to now. I mean, how many sequels to Little Mermaid and Toy Story and Peter Pan and Jungle Book and 101 Dalmatians did we get that were straight to DVD or home market stuff during the Eisner days? And how often did that continue up until Disney started acquiring literally third-party companies and their IPs to add to their catalog?
But they did kind of get it because they had Touchstone.
Yep. And they bought Touchstone in the 80s, and that worked for a time.
I thought they created Touchstone.
I heard that they bought it, but shortly after.
No, I think they created it.
You think they created? Okay.
Touchstone, Hollywood Pictures.
That was
Eisner
and those guys. Yeah.
Am I confusing with Hollywood Pictures then?
They may have scooped up as an independent production house. I am not sure, but
otherwise, I think how long did Miramax? How long did Miramax?
They bought them in like 91, 93, I think, somewhere in between there.
And then Dimension came shortly after.
Yeah, and Dimension was just an offshoot of Miramax. Yeah.
So they did movies like a studio, like Fox, for a good chunk of time, and then abandoned it all.
In the 90s, Disney probably pumped out more movies than any other studio.
Yeah.
Between all their different production houses, yes. I mean, we just named all the companies that were active in the 90s.
Yep. Hugely active. Horror, suspense, drama.
Yeah, pumping stuff out constantly.
And then what stopped it all? That's an interesting
Bob
question.
Iger.
Harvey.
Bob Iger. There you go.
And Bob Iger,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, Harvey.
Harvey to one
fucked
extent, okay,
Miramax. Yeah, that was where that came in. But yeah.
Yeah, he screwed Miramax, and then he left and started the Weinstein Company, which didn't live up to its own reputation. And then Bob Iger, when he got involved, Touchstone and Hollywood Pictures were pretty much all but gone by that point.
They don't even hardly use them anymore. I'm trying to think. I think they use the Touchstone banner for the new Poirot movies, and I think that's it. I might even be wrong about that.
Well, Touchstone was originally created before the Eisner area. That was under Ron Miller.
I was going to say, wasn't that what's his face who went on to Paramount that helped create that? And Katzenberg. Wasn't it Katzenberg and a couple of those guys? Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, yeah. There were definitely.
I want to say it was Katzenberg, and who's the guy who's with Ron Howard always as his producer?
Oh, Grazer.
Grazer. I think those two were ones that started it over there, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Katzenberg was one of the main dudes.
Yeah. Well,
because Eisner also came over from Paramount, remember?
Yeah, and again, he's the guy that founded Hollywood for Disney. So Miller created Touchstone, Eisner created Hollywood. But it doesn't matter. Neither of them are putting out anything. Yeah, I mean, technically Touchstone's defunct.
Yeah, no, that was what was stupid is when they bought Fox, they killed any production that wasn't X far into production. But instead of replacing it with something else, they just didn't do anything else. Like the only things they added was Deadpool finally, and I think the Alien projects.
Yeah, the
Planet of the Apes. Well, Planet of the Apes, I think, was technically already in pre-production over at Fox, but I could be wrong. But yeah.
No, I think you're right. I'm almost certain you're right.
And they got rid of Sound of Freedom.
No, that's on the shelf along with a whole bunch of other movies that have probably been done there. I mean, that one was just lucky that Angel Studios, number one, knew about it, and number two, nobody at Disney, realized the potential it could have, and then basically offloaded it for a lot less than what they were able to make on their own through that distribution deal.
That's insane.
That was a boneheaded decision. Let's just put it that way.
What's funny about this whole thing is Disney's
one of the
biggest one who did this is basically they did it all to themselves at the end of the day anyway. They bought Fox for their streaming network, and they really haven't done anything with it. They had a whole studio that they could have, it could have just kept pumping in money, even though it cost them $70 billion. Like, I don't understand why they did
don't
this.
Get it.
Me neither.
You have a facility that has its own momentum, its own life. Leave it going. Let it go. I mean, I don't understand. We know why it happened, because we know the Disney flying monkeys have got to have their fingers in everything. And they weren't going to leave Fox alone. Too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not right. See, we joked about it then, but it almost feels like that's pretty much what it was for. It's just so they could clean up the Star Wars
X-Men
deals and X-Men.
And the Marvel rights, yeah.
And the Marvel rights, yeah. When they'd have been better off just spending half that money on getting Spider-Man instead.
Or creating new IPs.
Yeah.
Well, Disney's never done that really. So that's always out of their way.
Well, that's not totally true. As I pointed out, unfortunately, their live action division used to do that all the time. Everything from like Tron to Mighty Ducks to Honey I Shrunk the Kids to Roger Rabbit to whatever, Nightmare Before Christmas. They had a lot of stuff. Well, Roger Rabbit would have been Touchstone, but yeah. Anyway, point being is they used to have a side of the company that wasn't animation, and they actually pumped out popular films for families that was considered under the Disney banner, right? Like Cool Runnings and all the other ones we just mentioned. But now all they do is remake their classic animation films. They don't release any original films. The only original film in the last few years has been Haunted Mansion and Jungle Cruise.
And both of those are based off of Disney attractions.
Yep.
So
I was sitting here trying to stretch to remember the last time Disney had an original movie that came out of their studio.
It's tricky, isn't it?
It has been a while.
And Broomstick.
No, I think we one of the last. I guess if you want to count like one of the last Pirates of the Caribbean sequels or
Again, based off of a
something like
Disney
that.
attraction.
Exactly. Yeah. So like we're at this point where
Like
I
even
think you have to
Tomorrowland.
go back to Tomorrowland is again still
Still Disney attraction. Yeah, like that's the thing. I
because
mean,
that was their gimmick after Pirates. Yeah, they're like, well, let's try and turn all of our attractions into a movie.
Yeah.
Instead of basing our attractions on the movies. Which was basically Walt's image, basically, right? Culture was the movies feed the park, which feed everything else.
I mean that's the way it was supposed to work, and you created this nice little circular synergy. And
Mary Poppins Returns would have been their last original movie, I believe,
which was terrible.
A sequel to Mary Poppins,
an unnecessary sequel to Mary Poppins, which was also based off of a play and a story.
But you had that movie about where Tom Hanks played Walt Disney about the making of Mary Poppins. That was
even before that, though, wasn't it? That was before
that led
that,
into
wasn't
it. Yeah, Saving Mr. Banks led into, I think, Mary Poppins too, right?
Yeah, and then Christopher Robin would be one of the only other original ones they had in that era. Yeah,
I don't think.
Did anyone see Saving Mr. Banks?
Oh God, I
think
Saving
Mr. Banks. Check it out. It's not a half bad movie.
It's not half bad, but it's somewhat inaccurate. But yeah.
And then Christopher Robin is based off of Winnie the Pooh, which is also an existing IP. So
yeah,
again, yeah, but actually, I'll give Christopher Robin credit though, because that's one of their movies they did that they should have been doing, right?
Yeah.
But anyway.
No, that fits the traditional Disney type of brand, which is you take certain public.
Like, what if Christopher Robin grew up? You know, that there's an idea, right?
Well, Max Landis pitched that like 8 years ago too. And this was more of a Robert Downey Jr. led thing that was crazy, but the actual one, the final product was better.
It was all right.
Moving a little bit on from this, we have a couple of super chats relating to this. Our good friend Robert Montoya says for $9.99, Disney under Ron Miller created Touchstone to release Splash. Under Eisner, they created Hollywood Studios and bought Miramax. Also, Clear Pelts is following Roy E. Disney's Save Disney campaign
100%.
Absolutely. I know that we only have you for a limited time today, Culture. But yesterday, we had the town hall with Nelson Peltz and Trian. Why don't you take us through the highlights of that? What's your impressions? And then, Tom, I believe we have a couple of clips we can play from that.
Yeah, Tom, do you have the stuff I sent you?
Grab it and get it ready here. But
yeah.
But no, the town hall yesterday, I think was I think it was good. My reaction from that, and I think we talked a little bit about it on Mr. H's yesterday, Andre, but I think it really did sound like they had a plan, which is something that you don't hear from the other side of the equation. You don't hear that coming from the mouths of anybody at Disney, in particular, Iger. He gives you a lot.
Can I just say what you hear coming from him? If I were to translate everything that he has said, it all boils down to trust me, bro.
No, yes, exactly. He is the ultimate trust me, bro. But it's like, look, these are things we could do. Well, yeah, you could also make a peanut butter sandwich for everybody in the audience, but that's not what you're there to do. You're supposed to have a plan and execute.
Don't give them ideas.
You're supposed to be able to say, we're going to build this attraction, we're going to build this land, we're going to have it done at this time, and this is how we are going about our capital expenditure of $60 billion. And whereas when you listen to Peltz and Rasulo yesterday, they sat there with no notes, looking very calm, having like you would feel like you were having a conversation with them around your breakfast table. And they were very eloquent and very down to earth. They come off as non-elite elites, which they have a very populist approach. And at the same time, they didn't attack anybody. This is one of the things that I think that Iger has difficulty with. He always seems to be adversarial. None of that was present with Rasulo and Peltz yesterday. So overall, the conversation was a little looser than I anticipated, but at the same time, and I think you hit the nail on the head here, Andre. I think it was a little curated, scripted. They did take the questions from the audience. Obviously, they solicited them via email, moving forward. And they took some very pointed questions, and they got very close to saying, we have to get rid of this ideological garbage, without saying the words, we have to get rid of this ideological garbage. In fact, it's pretty much on display in some of the clips that Tom's going to show us here in just a minute. So I hope.
Find the video file for some reason.
Today. My name is Renee Soto, and I'm here with Trump
All right. So the first one you got here is at
Nelson
12:46.
Peltz
So let's
and Jay.
Yeah.
Anybody on that board? I don't actually know any of them. Ironically, in this process, I did not overlap when I was an executive of the company with a single board member other than Bob. And not a single one has reached out to me, texted me, written me, asked me why I'm interested in doing this, what I think I can add. No contact from the Disney board.
Nelson,
That's not surprising.
why do you love Disney?
I have 10 kids. Okay, let's start there. And one of the greatest treats I could give to my kids, one of the great promises I would hold out if they did well in school or did well in their sports, was a trip to Disney. And I got to tell you, I enjoyed it myself. And because I love to see the smile on their faces, and it was great. The problem is, when I go to Disney, I said historically, I'm seeing the same rides I saw when my 40-year-olds were 15, But I do love Disney, and it's part of America. Disney is America. It's so important, and we've got to give people what they want to see. When people go into a movie, they want to escape. You go into a movie theater or you turn on television, you've got an hour, hour and a half, you want to get lost. You don't want to hear about all of the issues of the day. That's your one place to escape.
Well, for me,
I'm glad to hear that, because that's exactly what we've been saying now for last 4 or 5 years now or better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you know what? Peltz said something incredibly insightful.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's not young, but the fact that he joked about the fact that it has the same rides as when he took his kids.
Yeah, I took
50 years earlier. That is something nobody is talking about. So Disney has got a double problem. Number one, they hate the past, but they weren't creative enough over the last 30 some odd years to actually understand that the place had to change.
Well, they haven't innovated anything.
Regardless.
Exactly. Yeah, they haven't done any innovation. They haven't changed anything.
So much for their Imagineers,
and I think the last innovation was Epcot. Really?
They
didn't know what to do with it.
Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, Animal Kingdom.
So
that was within Epcot. But I think that's really insightful. So that if you could imagine that if Peltz was on the board for the last 30 years, maybe he would have jonesed about, hey, folks, you know what? Look at what Universal is doing. Well, let's just and of course Disney did buy IPs that they did nothing with, and we've talked about the Muppets before, right?
Oh yeah, they killed the Muppets. They don't know what.
They even
to
had
do
Power Rangers at one point, and they didn't know what to do with them. Yeah. But yeah, no, this is. I thought that was a great point, because here we've been this
really
many years.
Funny to hear that.
Well, and not only that. Speaking of Universal, they just announced that Disney said they're putting, was it $8 billion over the next how many years into the park culture, which was like diddly squat, basically.
Yeah. They're putting $60 billion into all
$60 billion. Okay.
Yeah, all the global theme parks and experiences over the course of the next decade. But most of that money, if not the vast majority of it, will be towards the end of that window, the last 5 years, which means
it'll be like $8 billion a year or whatever. Yeah,
it's very little. They're going to spend very little money. I mean, you not even like accounting for like critical capex that you have to have just to spend money on upkeep and replacement and things like that. There's the kind of money they're talking about is insignificant. Then you add to the fact that they're going to be doing the majority of that in their foreign parks, not in the United States, not where basically 1/3 of all operations capital comes from. Where your profit center comes from. It comes out of the Florida theme parks. Believe it or not, Walt Disney World does 1/3 of total operating income for the Disney company, and you're not reinvesting there at all, or very little anyway. That doesn't make a lot of sense. You're going to put more money in China.
Yeah. Disney park aficionados, are they still running the Indiana Jones running away from whirling blade theatrics at the park? Is that still there?
I don't know if the stunt show is still there. I would expect it is. I don't think as far as the amphitheater is still there. I haven't been to Disney now for a few years, and I have not gone to that show in a decade or more.
See, that would be pathetic. That would be pathetic if that was still there, to tell you the truth.
Well, it is still there. I'm almost certain. So
and it was
great when we went there.
Well, there are park people that are covering some of this stuff. Obviously, like that Park Place. You got Loretta Creole. You got Jay.
We should ask him.
All those guys, and I'm sure they cover a lot of this kind of stuff, and they would know specifically what's been there for how long and all that kind of stuff. The only thing that I know that has been changed or innovated has usually just been makeovers because they're, like with the Splash Mountain, for instance, right? And that was thing. Yeah, and that was a half-assed job from what it sounds like too, and that was like.
We haven't even actually. The general public has not even seen it yet, and from all accounts, Bob himself was not impressed with the results there. They took out over 100 animatronics to replace with a reported that were replaced by 13 animatronics throughout the attraction, with the majority of those being in the finale scene. So it's a major downgrade. And then the thing that they used to make fun of Universal for, which was having a bunch of screens everywhere, all their attractions were screen based, was the complaint. That's basically what they did to Splash Mountain, which is now this Tiana's muddy water puddle of goo salt mine thing.
Disney did innovate one thing at the park, and that is if you wanted to jump the queue, you could pay extra.
I don't think that's an innovation.
Yeah.
What? That's not an innovation? But it's more money.
Exactly. Yeah, not an innovation. That's an extraction from your wallet is what that is.
That still comes with the line for everybody else that purchased the same program.
I believe that may be where Disney has innovated the most in their parks the past 30 years. Where everyone else did some real innovation, Disney only found new ways of extracting your hard-earned cash. That appears to be the gist of it. But I'm sure there were some other interesting clips here as well. So let's move on to the next one.
That's at 1640, Tom.
Yeah.
Obviously, having spent 30 years of my career working.
Hopefully a great job.
Next question. How will you help the parks to stay competitive, but still allow average families to afford to visit?
Jay, you get started on that one.
Well, I think there's a careful balance between new, exciting new things around, beloved franchises, new franchises, but also the general upkeep of the property, and to make it feel like Walt used to say to the cast members, every day ought to feel like opening day here. I want somebody that arrives to feel like this is opening day and it's all bright and shiny. So I think there's always that balance. But, when I was running the parks, we used to put together a plan that had a mix of those things I just described, and it had a price tag. We priced out each one, and we'd go to senior management and ultimately the board and say, this is what we need over the next 5 years. But that process, when they did their investor day, they threw out 60 billion, here's 60 billion. There wasn't any timing. There wasn't any products. No one gets excited by hearing we're going to spend 60 billion. People get excited by hearing we're going to have this new attraction, this new show, and we're going to, do this and that. And I feel like that's what drives the business. That's what drives the excitement. That's what creates the urgency for people to come and visit and have a great time. But what's really happened is that most of what they've announced has to do with new pricing schemes. We used to have fast passes. Now you got to pay for them with this new system, GD Plus, but you have to pay for it. And it feels like guests and many people I know who go to the park tell me, boy, I really felt like every time I turned around, they were nickel and diming me. And that leaves a very bad taste in people's mouths because it fights the magic.
I was at a park earlier this year in Orlando, and
this is a good story.
The guys gave me a balloon to take home. They gave me a Mickey Mouse balloon, and it was a great balloon. But do you know how much that balloon cost? $16. I mean, that is starting to get ridiculous. It's a beautiful balloon, by the way, but it was still $16 for a balloon.
That's crazy
Okay,
markup when it's made in China for like a fraction of a cent.
shareholders.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's ridiculous. And again, both of these guys come correct when they're speaking to regular people. They sound like your grandfathers or
They sound like people who remember what it's like to make $30K a year.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they're very like the how much is a gallon of milk question, right? And that's seriously. These are people that you believe would actually know what that is. There are not a lot of people at this level with billions of dollars attached to their name that would even understand how difficult it is to make the money to buy that gallon of milk, or in this case, a balloon. $16
I think
for
what's
a balloon?
funny is, I think it's funny how Nelson Peltz has teamed up. I can't remember the other guy's name.
Jay
Rasulo.
How he's teamed up with Rasulu, who clearly has no experience with Disney.
He ran what? Yeah. You're being
joking.
facetious.
I'm being facetious. I mean, what a pairing that these two guys are. I mean, I think what an extraordinary team.
Well, the question that I have is, did Jay Rasulo run Disney in the early 90s? Like the parks part?
He was before he became CFO, he was in charge of parks. And then he very specifically, I believe he was in charge of the European park stuff at one point in time. And I think he did have a hand in getting the Shanghai parks moving forward. So he's kind of got a pretty vast experience with the parks. And
well, I was asking like the period of time with which he was in charge of that, not so much the other stuff.
I don't remember exactly.
He said
when
30
he
years, and I'm like, is that early 90s from his perspective, or is that late 90s, turn of the century? Because that's a big different thing, because there are technically two different types of Disney World at the start of the 90s versus towards the end of the 90s. Like they were not the same experience. We know that, and the experiences would kind of like flatlined a little bit as we went into the 21st century and up until today.
Well,
I'm curious as to where he sat in that period, because that would give you an insight as if he were to come back on the board, what you could be possibly seeing come back again.
Well, he was part of or chairman of Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, which was the parks group back then, through 2009.
Okay. So more recently, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so from October 2005 until 2009, and then he switched places with Tom Staggs, and he moved into the CFO position. He lost the CFO position to Christine McCarthy in 2015 when they kind of said bye.
And he's been out since. Yeah. So now it's him trying to get back in, which I tip my hat to him. Hopefully, they can work something out there.
Yeah, he got rid of. He was president officially of Parks, replacing Pressler back in 2002. So he was instrumental in turning things around because Pressler ran everything into the ground. So bad maintenance, all kinds of stuff. And so he went about putting a lot of practices back in place then to bring things up. But the Parks people, like the Parks fans, they didn't really like him much either, but he was better than Paul Pressler.
Yeah, which sounds like it's not too high of a bar. But let's move on to the next clip. What's the time code for that?
We have 1909.
Yeah, well, just press play because that's where we are.
I'm a father of 2 young children. I find it increasingly hard to find content that we can all sit down and watch together. Will you restore the family content and timeless stories that made Disney famous?
Well, I don't think the shareholder is alone. I think when I was at the company and for all the years back to 1928 before that, when people saw the Disney name on a movie, they never asked the question that the shareholder is asking. Can I take my family to this movie? And are they going to have a good time? And am I not going to have to go home and explain what was going on between those people and why, and so on and so forth? It was guaranteed great family content. Now I think people ask that question, and Bob Iger himself has said, I think we've moved too far away from entertainment into delivering messages. And I don't think that's what people want. I know lots and lots about Walt, what he said, what he did, because it was a real guiding principle. And he wanted people to escape their lives when they came into Disneyland. Do you know that from inside any Disney park, you cannot see any part of the outside world? And that is by design. There's actually something they call a sight cone. So you can, when you're saying here's the cone, nothing can be built within that cone that might be visible to guests when they're in the park. And that should be the same philosophy they use in their films, in animation, and live action. You come into the theater, you sit down, you leave all that stuff outside the door, and you just enjoy yourself for an hour and a half or 8 or 10 hours in a park. That's what the magic is about.
Got another park-related question. Visiting
Yeah,
Disney
let's
World
pause
has
it right
become
there
confusing
because
and frustrating.
that's
What would you do to improve the guest experience?
that's the important thing.
Yeah, and look, I mean, he basically described it. There's something called good show and bad show, and by having the outside world intrude into the immersive experience, that's bad show. And that's a go ahead.
I was just saying, it's a great way of explaining what Disney's doing with its movies, right? And that's exactly what he used it for as an example there. And we have a guest joining us now, Mr. Yellow Flash. How you doing?
Hey.
Yo.
We're in the middle of going through this Trian Partners town hall with Nelson Peltz.
Yeah, and you came in just the right time because here he was talking about basically how Disney movies now all need content warnings because they're no longer safe for families.
Yeah, I haven't been following a lot of this stuff this week because there's been so much video game content.
Yeah, I've been following your Sweet Baby videos. They've been great.
Yeah, I've been loving the Sweet Baby carnage.
Yeah, and we'll get into that
I can tell
momentarily here. Yeah, but just to finish off this first. So basically, what you just saw were the 2 people who right now are a threat to Bob Iger, Jay Rasulo, and Nelson Peltz, basically stating outright that it's a problem that Disney's content is divisive and it's no longer family friendly, and it needs to be made family friendly again. Now, of course, they could have been harsher in saying this, but the audience for this are Disney shareholders. I think this was basically them saying in a very diplomatic manner, we need to stop sweet babying this.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see those pictures of, I guess there was a drag show parade at Disney?
Yeah, that was last summer, or well, just a few months.
I was going to say that's just Tuesday that's just typical Tuesday, isn't it?
that's at the lunch. That's at the lunchroom,
right? Like that's just an everyday occurrence. I thought at Disney, but yeah.
Imagine some normie family going there and they just have their kids, and here comes this fucking parade. Oh, I'd be so mad.
Well, you know what? I was thinking of exactly that. We went there 20 years ago, and one of the most exciting and fun things for the entire family, like 2 families went, right? The grandparents took our family, and then, my brother-in-law and whatever, and their kids, and we just rushed for the big parade that they have down Main Street, right?
Yeah.
And it was really refreshing because small town America was not filled with fentanyl addicts at the time, like they are now. But that's another feature of modern Disney World. But the and at the time, that's when the Buzz Lightyears and all that came into the into the mix, into that parade, and they just had such a variety of their characters, all the way going to Snow White and Cinderella, Buzz Lightyear, Bug's Life. I mean, it was just it felt modern. They had every new IP that they had that was hugely successful mixed in with all their historical stuff that was still of significance to us. And it was a very joyous experience. I don't know, other than drag queens, what they're going to be putting in that's new now.
Other than Frozen, what real big hit have they had
Yeah.
that's new? This is
let's
a
not
good
forget
point.
about Strange
And Frozen's already over a decade old. Sorry, go ahead.
That's
Yeah.
a really good point that he just brought up that I'd like to talk about. It's like Universal has all of the culturally relevant modern stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is over there now. And Disney just feels like a relic of the past. And in a lot of ways, like when you go in there, I was there a few years ago, like it looks kind of dirty in some spots. Like they really need to take, I don't know, some power washers or something and get the top of these buildings. I'm not even like trying to be funny, like for real. Like
No.
I remember going
I've
in there
heard
thinking
that.
it was dirty. Because
Well,
it's just when you look at the top of the buildings, like some of them have a lot of dirt and just kind of,
well, it's probably because they
rhyme on
actually
there.
used to care. And I mean, frankly, this just has gone. This is like most business anymore, and I'm sure it's not just exclusive to Disney. And I'm not trying to stick up for them, but I feel like every like fast food restaurant, store, business in the last few years has just gone downhill. Even before COVID, they were starting to go downhill. And whether it's just because they can't find good work, or they just don't care anymore, or the corporate people are just
Or it
more worried
costs
about
too
the
much.
bottom line. And it could cost too much to hire enough people. And I know that's part of the problems with the theaters, right? I brought that up before too, is 90% of the shit that people bitch about going to the theater outside of the trip itself is because the theaters for the longest time were being squeezed so hard by the studios, they couldn't afford anybody, right? They couldn't afford to hire anybody to do anything there. You barely have one person running the concession stand at that point.
But
I mean,
but
things have gotten a little better
Disney
now,
in
but yeah.
particular, but Disney's brand was pristine cleanliness and safety. That was
right.
so important. I mean, I would listen to people come out of washrooms and talk about how clean they are. Like that would be an area of conversation. It
Well,
was
it should
so
reflect what
important.
it should reflect what they're doing on screen, and that is, pretty much
Well, of course. So I'm just
clean
talking
in
about
all
the parks,
senses of the words. No, but I mean, it does carry over, and you got a point. To me, it just feels
Sure.
like they don't care anymore. It's, when in my point for bringing up restaurants and stuff specifically is you kind of know when the management has gone out the window at a restaurant, right? Because as you started to notice, the bathrooms start to look shittier than they used to. The food services start to get shittier. Like you start to notice they don't pay as much attention to the dust in the corners of the cobwebs and stuff like that.
Sure. And they start serving powdered creamer with coffee.
Yeah, exactly. And you start to just get to that point where you're like, yeah, fuck this place. It's just as bad as the place I left in the first place that I found this place for, right? And it's kind of where you're at. And Disney has become that restaurant now. That's a great point, and I'm glad they brought that up, and I think you guys are spot on. I've never even been to Disney parks, but I could probably tell you most of the rides that are there just because they have the same rides, as he pointed out, that have been there for 40, 50 years. And their
I've
movies...
been there many times.
Their movies, on the other hand, is exactly what he was pointing out here, and that is they shove the modern day-isms in the modern world in there, and I love the analogy of using the parks compared to the movies, because he's right. We shouldn't see the seams in the movie. The real world shouldn't encroach our movies, especially when it comes from Disney. When we go into a Disney movie, we should just be expected to be swept away to a world that doesn't exist, or even a more, sanitized version of the world we live in, which doesn't include lesbians making out.
I wouldn't mind that.
Well, that's not a bad thing, but not in
Well,
Star Wars
they're
necessarily.
allowed to, but there's a time and a place for everything.
Or Buzz Lightyear.
Okay, listen, it shouldn't be. How about this? It shouldn't be anyone making out. Like, I don't need the heterosexual.
No, of course not.
Right
True.
up
Like,
in
I
my
mean, even a
face.
kiss is
That's
usually
the issue.
treated as like a big deal in their movies,
Yeah.
right? So,
But
like, yeah.
the difference is that, of course, that a lesbian kiss that you discuss, that is blatantly being shoved in your face.
That's just it.
Whereas the heterosexual one isn't. That's kind of like the difference there, isn't it?
And the funny thing is those people who are shoving that crap in your face would have you believe that a simple peck that brings Snow White back to life is problematic. See, that's the issue I have here is like,
yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. But anyhow, that being said, was there any more? Let me see. Was there any more timestamps here? 2217 or 21? I think we were at.
I think that was the most important ones, wasn't it? Cultured. I believe that was the.
Actually, there's
that mattered.
Actually, I'm gonna go to 22. We already watched the one, so actually, I think this is a good one. This is about the toxic workplace, and then we're done.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That ties into everything.
And that's not the way it was meant to be, especially when there are alternatives, and the alternatives are newer than what you're offering. So you got to be very careful how hard you push that pricing mechanism.
Next question. It's been widely reported that with all the firings and upheaval, Disney's workplace culture has become toxic to the point that it's affecting the well-being of employees. How do you propose to address that?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about a board-led review of the creative process and structure within the company. And from my experience at Disney, people feel disenfranchised when they're confused about who makes decisions, when they're confused about what the strategy is, and if it's any measure of what the people feel like inside the company, on the outside of the company, we can't understand the strategy at all. And I'm sure people inside the company feel the same way. So I think clarity and transparency goes a really long way, both inside and outside.
You know, the most important asset most companies have, Disney being no exception, is the employees. When you go to the park, you're interacting with people who have to have a smile on their face, people there to help you, to make sure your stay is a pleasant one.
I'll tell you, to put an exclamation point on what Nelson just said, in all my years of running parks, I never got one letter about how great an attraction was, how great a restaurant was. The only letters were about cast members.
That's probably a good place to stop there, I think. Or was there more to that point?
No, I think that's an interesting point as well. And what have we learned from Disney? Certainly on the production side of things, it's a positively toxic place, and everyone hates being there, especially like the employees of the white and heterosexual persuasions, because they are practically being shunned and encouraged to leave.
Yeah, and we've learned a lot about that in the last few weeks with the stuff that Film Threat's been putting out.
Yeah, with the
specifically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's with regards to Disney animation. He was specifically talking about the park.
Yeah, of course.
But just in general, I was going to
say,
say, that's across the board too. I'm sure on top of it all, because I mean, I've heard from people inside Lucasfilm and other places where they've all said the same things. It's a very toxic work environment unless you're in a certain demographic or what do you call it? Political persuasion, and other people make it almost an unworkable environment. I mean, and how can you produce? How can you produce in an environment like that? I just don't understand.
Well, we've seen what they produced in the environment like that.
Yeah,
it's not something.
Well, and a lot of that's just some of that is even more so just a result of we have to do these things and these standards to live by now. Go. Right, so they're not building movies and stories the way they used to. They're building them from the top down instead of the bottom up. Yeah.
Well, no, not top down, middle out. It's
whatever you want to call it. They're working with
the asylum.
What's the message, and then what do we want for like our double shiny, lead? That's kind of the way they go from this. Is like, well, we just want to we want to tell a story about lesbians. Okay, so who was our lead story? That's where they do things now, instead of actually going, like the actual story of Wish. That sounds like a Disney idea, but it was perverted by these people, right? It's like, well, what is the actual, where does the story of, or the legend come from of why you would wish upon a star? That is the kind of movie that Disney would make back in the day. It's like, okay, well, let's tell that story, right? Yeah. No, instead it turned into some, it turned into some perverted mess instead, because they had to shove this message in and that message in, and it had to become about this and that instead. So
yeah, they let the message dictate the story, as opposed to the story discover what the message is. And the thing is, the message is always a byproduct of the story. It's something that allows audiences to connect with that story and want to watch it again, because on the surface, they're not paying attention to that. It's not something that's being preached to them. They're just enjoying the story. And then they realize, oh, wait, this is kind of like a situation I've been in. I understand. I can connect to these characters on a far more deeper level now. And it's not offensive. It's not preachy. It's not patronizing. It's not insulting. It's not targeting anyone or negatively targeting the audience for that, because it's all about how awesome that story was and how it was able to build a connection. And it did so through entertainment and through drama, ups and downs, successes and failures, all the things that people, experience through life. That's what makes stories valuable. That's why people are connected to them. If they were just blind entertainment, they'd be disposable, and they're not.
Wish had the other problem of having to avoid Disney himself. So not only were they pushing everything through a social critical theory lens, I love using the term lens, they were also avoiding Disney at all cost, which, again, a very difficult thing to do if you're trying to create a movie like Wish.
Yeah.
Well, they found a way to the company's detriment. Any final words on Disney before we do a couple of super chats and then transition?
Yeah. Well, what are the chances of these guys? What's the goal of these two guys, and what are the chances of them accomplishing it?
This year, I don't think they're very good, but they're making more headway and momentum. I think Culture, you've had a pretty good take on this.
Yeah, I don't expect for them to be successful in achieving the 2 board seats that they're looking for. They're definitely rattling enough cages at Disney that Iger and the board that's there now they're freaking out. They're doing everything they can to bolster the stock price artificially. Yeah, and to shore up some support from other places like Value Act and some others. So what these 2 gentlemen are doing, though, is they're talking with real common sense approach to what needs to be done at Disney, and they're speaking in a way that is very plain. Anybody can understand. Doesn't matter what level investor you
I got a question for you, Culture, possibly. Yeah. Paul, if you can't answer it, you might know the answer. Wouldn't it make more sense at this point for Bob to just find a way to get them on the board just so he could shut them the fuck up? You get what I'm saying? Because once they get on the board, wouldn't it be against their interest to act out on the company, and they would work within the company then to
They can't publicly attack the company unless
that's what I'm saying. Exactly. So wouldn't it work to Bob's favor? Just say, fuck it. Just give them the 2 spots, because the 2 spots are not going to, like you and other guys have said, they need at least 3 or more spots to really make a huge difference anyway. But this would at least get them off the playing board as far as because this is a public relations nightmare, right? Not many people know who these people are, but sooner or later, this stuff's going to start to get around, like Kathleen Kennedy and all that stuff. Also, it's just a South Park episode away from everybody knowing about it.
That's true. But no, they really can't go out of their way to say negative things once they're on the board. In fact,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that was my question.
They also have a lot of
arguments. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, they also have to have a lot of NDAs and things in place for their organizations, because what this
it makes no sense for Bob to keep fighting them publicly, I guess, is the answer to my question.
And here's the thing. If there is some things that are being done that are underhanded or under the table, or some things come to light to them, at that point, all bets are off. They can actually talk about some things within the company if those were the situations were occurring. That's what kind of makes this look really bad, is that they you don't want to put 2 highly qualified people and people who are invested in your company financially. you don't want to put them on your board of directors. That's very fishy. Doesn't make a lot of sense. You've got, you know, clothing brand people. You have forced labor people like the Nike chairman there. You have, you know, they do a lot of business with China, but you know, they have a lot of people on this board that aren't qualified to be there. And you know, one of the qualifications, and apparently the two people that they're replacing, the only qualifications they have is this 360-degree brand activation. That's a qualification for the board. So I think, like I said, if that's the only qualification on the board that two of those board members have, what are they doing there? And you have an auto manufacturer there. You know, you have a lot of people on this board that don't have anything to do with entertainment.
Well, a lot of people on the board don't even have much stock or interest in the company anyway, is another thing we learned. Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No, you're right. But no, so Nelson Peltz, who has a lot of financial interests in the company, and the people that he's tied to, like Ike Perlmutter and others, they all have a vested interest in the company doing the best it possibly can and returning to, you know, generating the most, highest, best, you know, shareholder value. So, but like I said, let's say that they do what you say, Tom, and they let them in. Well, that they're going to lose two people that are basically just Iger yes men, because everybody that's on this board are basically just employees of
oh, we
Iger.
know that already. But I guess like I said, my question comes from the fact of, like, I'm looking at it from a perspective of, you know, I try to look at everything from all angles. That's one thing I know Andre likes that I do. And I'm just looking at it from the angle of Bob Iger. Like, right now, I've got enough fucking shit to deal with. Nelson Peltz is one big thorn in my side that I really don't want to have to deal with publicly anymore. So I would think the easiest way to deal with him is to just get him on the board, because, you know, it's kind of like a keep your enemies closer kind of thing. But not only that, like I said, it fixes the problem of him going out publicly and talking like this, because it's really bad for him especially in the financial papers, I got to imagine.
I think Iger believes, or is just hoping, that Peltz is going to go away after this time.
I don't think he will. We all know
I don't think he will at all. I think he's going to double down and keep going. In fact, like I said, it would be in Peltz's best interest to try to align himself with people, other billionaires that have extra money in their pocket, like Ackman or Musk, or who's the other PayPal guy that I always pals with Musk?
I can't remember, but
but like I said, I mean, if he just reaches out and says, "Hey, you know, how about we all throw in and we fix Disney?" Because there's a cultural problem here that Disney could have. So anyway, like I said, I just wanted to kind of spill some of that, because I think, like I said, I mean, the upside for them letting him in the door is that they would be quiet. But at the same time, if they're doing anything nefarious, that would be a downside, because they would be allowed to expose that. So anyway,
that would be the real downside.
There's that true, I suppose. Yeah. But I want to give Flash the last word on this, since he just came in at the end and didn't really have much to say so far to this point.
I haven't been following this stuff this week, so I didn't see that full interview. I didn't watch it. I just saw the last part. Like, there's been a lot of video game stuff this week. I haven't really been following Disney. I'm kind of just waiting for the vote.
Well, maybe you'll be able to help us out talk more about the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff, which we're going to get to here after some super chats, and we let culture go. But Mikey's in the chat and he agrees. If you can't let Iger, you can't let him in the door. He's got something to hide. Well, there you go.
And that's the speculation that I've had all along, is that there's things inside the door that they don't want.
Well, I think there's some financial shenanigans on top of it all, because we still haven't heard. Yeah, so we still haven't heard the results of certain inquiries and investigations yet.
And that audit was very eye-opening. So you can imagine what the rest of the company looks like if they ran SIFTOD so poorly.
But that being said, we want to thank you, Culture, for all your help this morning, especially with this Peltz stuff. Check out Culture Casino's channel. Anything you want to plug on your way out? I think you have a stream later on today, correct?
If my guest gets back to me, I'm definitely I would love to be able to do a Friday post flight, but if not, I'll be back with another late night Sunday show, and kind of excited about that. And I just get to make content all weekend, so yay me. So thanks for having me, gentlemen. I hope you have a great day. See you soon.
Take care. And Gonzalo asked a very easy question to answer. What caused Chapek's firing? Well, Chapek was fired because Bob learned very early on that he was not going to be his little puppet.
That's ultimately
And as
the
we've
real
learned,
reason.
yeah, and we've all learned that he controls the board. So, yeah, there's your answer, basically. He did it. He put up with it as long as he could, and then as soon as he saw his way back in, he used it. We got Patrick Robinson here who sends in $9.99, says Bambi live action remake has lost its director, and Sword in the Stone live action remake has been put on hold. We read this.
Yeah,
one
we
already.
read
We
this.
got this one. Yeah,
we got this one.
But we had a question. We had a question here, which I think is going to be relatively perfect, just to put a cap on the Disney, and that is Alejandro Diaz, who says The Black Cauldron deserves a dark remake. What movies would you guys remake? Presumably Disney movies. So, is there any Disney movies that deserves a remake? First of all, I agree with The Black Cauldron. That'd be amazing in live action. But what else?
There is only one answer: Howard the Duck.
No.
Why not? They own it now.
But there's no audience fever to see it.
Well, what remake has audience fever to see it? That's what you hopefully create over the course of marketing.
Well, yeah, but when you've got a huge movie,
to be honest,
you're better off Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, well, see, that's their problem. They'll jump at something like that. Disney has a whole bag of stuff that they could dig into. Like, I mean, they could always revive Herbie again, now fully electric, and then you've got I mean,
how about Song of the South? Let's remake that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say Flight of the Navigator. I think would have been a fun one to revisit. Because I don't think
they should remake Little Mermaid.
Oh, we another one again.
No,
we get the white version this time.
So do it right.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even know if I want to deal with that all over again. But yeah, I think things like Flight of the Navigator and stuff like that. Like they tried with Pete's Dragon, but that was a bad move, and that was because I think they went way too far from the mothership on that one. But there's some stuff I think they have some potential to. I think they should leave their animation stuff alone. I think we've seen enough of the live action remakes of animated stuff, but the Black Cauldron might be one of the few.
They should update Daniel Boone
or Davy Crockett.
Was it Davy Crockett or Daniel Boone was their movie?
Davy Crockett.
Davy Crockett.
Of the Wild Frontier.
King of
I don't know
the
if they had
Wild
Daniel
Frontier.
Boone.
Yeah. No. I'm thinking the one with Fess Parker. I think was Davy Crockett. Anyway. Yeah, that would be very controversial to remake that. But going back in time to all their old
looks like he may have played both
old movies.
He played both.
I think you might be right.
He did. I'm looking at it right now. He played both. So you're right on both accounts.
They could do another Treasure Island. They haven't done a Treasure Island in a long time.
Especially banking off of I'm surprised they didn't to bank off of Pirates of the Caribbean at that time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shaggy D.E.I. would be great. An updated version of the Shaggy D.E.I.
Well, they did that with Tim Allen. That's almost 20 years ago now or more.
They did one with Tim Allen. I think they did another one with Robert Downey Jr., didn't they?
Yes, you're right. Not that long ago. Yeah.
Oh,
that's right. They did. See, and that might have been one of the last times they tried to do something like that. Yeah. Although Lindsay Lohan did say they're doing Freaky Friday 2. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Generations of that with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Did they pay her in drugs?
No, they paid off her drugs.
They paid off her drug debt because she's gone clean and married now with some kids of her own.
Yeah,
so.
No, she's actually got her shit together from what I'd heard. Yeah.
Well, as soon as she got away from Disney, that's what kind of helped.
That helped a little bit, evidently.
She was a Disney darling. She left and did what all Disney darlings do, which is but they no longer have that helicopter parent type of mentality over top of them. They splurged out, went down a dark path. And then Disney kind of got their hooks into them again, and then then basically discarded them, and then they had to kind of heal themselves on their own. And
I'm
now she's going back to Disney, which I'm like, that's a bad idea, Lindsay.
Well, one of Disney seems to be very good at, for instance, de-cleavaging actresses because they had to do that to Lindsay for the Love Bug. They de-cleavaged her.
Great use of CGI and spending of God knows how much money. But yeah, no.
There you go.
Basically, it sounds like we want a Herbie remake. As for me,
yeah,
The Black Hole, great Disney movie that actually could
Yeah.
do very well with
That's a good one,
with
yeah.
a remake. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
That's the movie
mean,
about the stripper, right?
no, that's The Black Hole.
Oh,
Different
Wait,
hole.
they have the same title, so I can see why you would get
that's
confused.
you're right.
But Yellow Flash, what about you? Any classic Disney films that you'd like to take a crack at, or you'd like to see them take a
I
crack
like
at
to see
again?
them leave stuff alone.
Yeah, I know that's my problem too.
Because anytime they
we're
remake
just
anything
having
now,
fun,
it's
Yellow
trash.
Flash. Oh yeah, for sure.
Disney stuff. I think if they maybe Tarzan. I really like that Tarzan movie.
Yeah, wasn't that? Although that was when we always joked about we'd like to see him do a race swapped one of that one.
Yeah, make him black.
Let's see that.
No, they make Jane Black in the
trouble.
Yeah, that's really what they would do. Yeah, good job. Now you cracked it for him. Good job, script doctor.
No, this is great because then it can help burn the rest of Disney down one more acre at a time.
Got a point. But yeah, no, like I'm with pretty much the mentality of most movies don't really need to be remade anyway.
No, I agree.
Great concepts with bad execution need to be remade, and there's
Yeah.
plenty of those to look at. Don't remake the classics.
And even my choice was pretty much executed well. It just never really got the notice. I think at the time, but anyway, Anthony sends in 50 Danish krona and says, "Greetings from Denmark, Andre and panel. Thanks for using your time to enrich other channels with your unique insight. I learn much." Well, we're glad to hear it.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, thanks for the kind words.
Yeah. We're better than modern public schools. John Dose, been a member for 2 months. It says Andrew Esquire was just covering that in Japan, moral rights are non-transferable in Japan. They do end with death. Can script explain moral copyright?
Oh wow, going back to my college days. So moral copyright is about preserving the integrity of the work from the author. I know we have it in Canada. I know it's throughout most of Europe. I think there's a waiver for it in the United States, which is why when you can sell a property, the new owner has no responsibility to maintain the integrity of the property. Gosh, I haven't had to think about this in a while, so I'm doing my best to try and answer this. I do know, yes, because I am anonymous, I can actually publish something under the script doctor and still have ownership of it privately without it being disclosed publicly as part of morality.
There you go. That's a good example.
As well, so that's another example of it. And in Japan, I would assume that unless, that if they're not transferable, then yes, it ends with that creator, meaning that no one else can.
They don't even have fair use over there.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, U.S. actually has a pretty good law about fair use. YouTube doesn't follow it, but
moral rights would prevent someone from race and gender swapping a character.
There you go.
Again, like the United States kind of has that, but they also instituted a waiver, and I remembered that because I was discussing a deal like a decade ago, and they wanted to change a fictional character, Encyclopedia Brown, into a girl. They wanted to make it a girl. And they said they could do that because they have there's the waiver to moral integrity clause, and they never ended up following through with it. But that's one of the aspects that a moral integrity clause has. Unfortunately, the United States has a means to circumvent that. So that's why you're getting Miles Morales as a Spider-Man to a degree.
In Canada, you have to specifically waive your moral rights. So whenever I negotiated something where I had created it, I would never bring up moral rights because if the purchaser didn't bring it up, I sure as hell wasn't going to.
Yeah.
That way, if the contract gets signed and then they screw up and they start making changes to the character, I go, no, I retain moral rights to that character. You can't do it. So,
and in the United States, you don't even have to bring that up. You can just actually make an application for it outside of the individual and then go ahead and do it. Canada, they don't really like the waiver is so rarely used in Canada because it's really hard to actually get an agreement between the two parties for that.
You were
In
saying
most
something,
cases, the
Flash?
deals fall through. Yeah.
You were going to say something, Flash?
No, I don't know anything about
Oh, I
Japanese
thought you were going to say
copyright
something.
law.
Okay, I thought you were
You
going
have
to
to
ask
get
something.
Andrew on for that.
I just thought I heard your voice, so I guess it was just okay. Then we got Hyperguyver 2 here who says with $5, no, Paul, you should see the Chinese live action Dragon Ball. It's bad, but and entertaining for all the wrong reasons. Or wouldn't you be for all the right reasons?
I didn't know
Yeah.
China made one. There's a Japanese one I've seen.
I didn't know
unless
either.
that was in China that made it. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's like Dragon Ball.
Well, there's the North American one.
It's Dragon Ball. The magic happens or something. It looked awful. I've never watched it. And I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan.
Now that almost sounds like a porn title. Yeah, thank you for that, Hyperguyver 2. Pinochet's Helicopter Tour sends in $2 and says, so are fans considered economic terrorists yet? That's funny.
Well, that ties in rather nicely with Sweet Baby Inc., doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and on that note, Callum Lyle says Sweet Baby Inc. was involved in that Spider-Man 2 game, and they made MJ hideous and made Black Cat gay at the last minute as a middle finger to the players.
That's true.
So yeah.
Make her gay.
So that gets us kind of nicely to the Sweet Baby Inc. news. I think we'll put a pin for now in the super chats, but we'll get back to them shortly here. Yeah, because we got Yellow Flash here, and the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff has been kind of blowing up. This is been the talk of the town this week. So yeah, where do you want to begin with this, Andre?
Yeah, well, we've covered it as well. Of course, not nearly as extensive as Yellow Flash. So this obviously has been the week of hell for Sweet Baby Inc. And since you're on top of it, Yellow Flash, can't you just very briefly talk us through what's happened this week with a particular emphasis on the most recent developments? Because the developments have been nonstop, haven't they?
Yeah, stuff just keeps coming out. What I find funny is the way the media has been acting about this. If anybody wants a Gamergate 2, it's the media. Kotaku, PC Gamer, all these websites, they would love to have a Gamergate 2 because it would bring some life back to their massive overheads, especially Kotaku, because their journalists are union. So everyone gets, I think, to start like a $50,000 salary there. That's why I'm surprised they're still
Must be
on.
nice.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're still running, to be honest, with that kind of overhead. But all these Sweet Baby people, they've been going after fans, and all these people are covering it up. Like when they talk about how this all kicked off, none of these websites talk about the fact that they went out and tried to get that curator taken down and get that guy's account suspended. Not one inclusion of that screenshot where that Chris Kindred guy, like that's his name, was saying, go report his account because he loves it so much, because he has thousands of dollars in games on Steam. It's just funny how all this works, but no one believes him anymore. All these websites don't have the power they have. Calling everybody racist, that doesn't have the same punch it used to have a few years ago. And it's really fun to watch them just struggle and fall. Sweet Baby's done. And I know people are celebrating that, but there's a long list of these companies that will just take their spot too. So it's just a small little victory.
True, but
you don't think they're done?
Yeah, I think they're done. Anybody that touches them, I mean, that curator's over 200,000 people now. Like, this thing is spread like wildfire. It almost be like a death kiss.
Yeah, well, you had that great that phrase that made me laugh when I saw your video, which was free. It says a Sweet Baby death kiss. I think it was.
Yeah,
you called it something.
It's a death kiss to work with them now.
Well,
because it's just going to bring a lot of controversy that you just don't need. And the biggest thing that everyone keeps forgetting is like what's going on with AAA gaming right now. Like, these games aren't making money. Like Spider-Man 2, one of the biggest games last year, $300 million budget, I think was reported. That's probably just on the game. That's probably not even including advertising. So these companies, they're not making their money back despite like good reviews and stuff like that. The money's just not coming in like it used to. So when you have these big expensive games, it's just would seem kind of just dumb now to bring this kind of controversy in, at least publicly.
I was going to say,
they
well,
work
this is
with them on the side and not say anything, but
this is basically the Bud Light moment, though, for this stuff, I believe. And you know, us on this side of the fence, we knew exactly what to look for, right? So I think that's where a lot of this stuff kind of blew up, and you had a lot of people who were kind of unaware of some of this stuff in certain circles, I guess. And that's where we kind of seen where there is the overlap with the gaming, you know, the gaming crowd, and there isn't an overlap with the gaming crowd. And certain people this is just kind of just coming to light to them. And I've been calling them Crybaby Inc. the last few days, because especially now that we learn how they got in there. And I loved the piece that Andre did, because it was brilliant. Because, you know, even though he didn't bring this, I don't think he brought this point up in it, but I think he did kind of allude to it. Basically, like in that whole write-up they had, you know, trying to make excuses for Sweet Baby Inc. But yet we have the video. We literally have the video where this bitch is going around going, yeah, just terrorize your bosses into doing this shit if they don't. Right?
Look at this right here. This is a game that just came out and fans are liking it. And they're talking about this game, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Not even like it's probably not going to make money. And there's a lot of reasons for that, mostly because it's only on PS5. It's not on any other platform, and it's a big, expensive game. But there's just no money in AAA games anymore. It costs too much money to make.
Do you think even that one is going to fail? Because from everyone I have heard, everyone I know who still does these big AAA games, this is the one that they look forward to the most.
Final Fantasy 16
among them.
Final Fantasy 16 was well received, and that was a sales disappointment. That's straight from Square. That's not like speculation. Like they talked about how it was a sales disappointment. This one will probably do a little bit better, but it's just costs too much money to make these games anymore. It's a problem.
I was gonna say, are we seeing a downtrend in gaming just in general?
No, the people want games. It's just they cost too much money to make.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as that. People want games, but just like with movies, people want to see movies. People want to see Marvel movies still, even if they are horrible, but they cost way too much. When you spend $300, $400, $500, yeah, like James Gunn better be worried when we heard these reports that his Superman is going to have a total negative cost of $500 million. The hell are they doing? It's like the same thing with games. When you have so much bloat that these games become so expensive because they have let their industry run amok. They have a ton of diversity hires, which are super expensive, doesn't do anything. They have a ton of people that should be working, but aren't doing it because they're out having coffee all day. Massive office space where people aren't working. They have all kinds of stuff that just makes everything expensive, create massive overheads, and then you hire Sweet Baby Inc. to make the games unplayable so the players don't get the experience they want. So you have massive overheads combined with doing all these kinds of horrible and predatory practices to make sure that people don't want to buy the games in the first place. Of course, it's going to go to hell.
Somebody in the chat said that that was fake news. Can you pull that up?
What is fake?
What was fake news?
That Final Fantasy 16 didn't meet expectations. Well, here it is from Square themselves.
Oh, I was looking in the chat. Sorry.
This is from October of last year. So, and then I can go straight to the Bloomberg one if you don't like that.
Well, if
it's not fake news.
And Bloomberg says it, then probably chances are, yeah, they may have been a teeny weeny little bit disappointed by it. So, that's speculation.
Yeah, but Flash, you know what game my son's playing right now? Helldivers 2.
Yeah, that game's a lot of fun. And it's
like
$40.
It's just fun. Yeah. Right. And all he talks about is how much fun it is. You don't talk about fun with the AAA games anymore. I played not Starfield. It was terrible. The Bethesda game.
Starfield, yeah.
Starfield. It was terrible. I mean, really? This is the best? These are the Skyrim people? This is the best you could come up with?
Well, and that's the thing.
Donuts and everything.
Well, and that's the thing is, I'm trying to figure this out because, and I'm not trying to be all like facetious about it or anything, but I was told for many, many, many years that games were going to be bigger than movies. They were going to be the next big thing.
Well, they still are. It's still
outpacing and making more money than are they though? That's my question here.
yeah.
I'm trying to think outside
It's
of
still
Hogwarts.
a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah, like games like Helldivers and stuff like that. Those make money. Those are big successes. Games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that are stuck to one platform.
I'm asking like an actual dollar value. Okay, I got here. Palworld has made 500 million, and Helldivers 2 surpassed 200 million. That ain't shit compared to a movie that makes $1 billion at the box office. That's my point. See, you're talking an industry that takes too long. This is why they're having a problem, because they cost 3 times as much to make as a movie and twice as long or 3 times as long to make them. And then when they come out, if they're not a huge success like this, they're not making any fucking money back. So this is not the industry that everybody fucking tried to feed it to me as to begin with.
You're wrong though, because an indie game. Sorry, Paul. An indie
game, but like otherwise you got to be like a GTA to make any money. It looks like
that is part of the problem. Yeah, these big AAA games, but the indie games are doing just fine. Nintendo is doing just fine. Nintendo has a lot of cash on hand.
Right, but see, they don't spend the kind of money on their games.
No, they don't.
That's
all of their games
I'm seeing it now is from the bigger picture. Is what I'm saying. Sorry.
All of their games now are on old technology, so they make a lot of money when their games take off.
And the
other thing with games is that they can be fixed and often recover. So, for instance, Fallout 76, which was a disaster when it was launched, is actually pretty good right now, and it's got a lot of players. Movies don't have that ability to fix themselves over time.
Then again, they did that with Spider-Verse in the theaters, but yeah. Anyway.
No. Well,
they fixed it in theater. Yeah. While it was in theaters, they swapped it out with a fixed version. But anyway, I get what you're saying.
But
I totally
concede
on that.
And
point,
there's Cyberpunk fixed itself and made lots of money in the end.
Well, can we add
that's
one
something
thing
that
to
games can do?
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing, though, Paul. It didn't fix itself. It was released in a beta state. Big difference.
Yeah.
It didn't fix itself. It got completed. It was released before it was ready to be released. This is the problem with modern games. It's not a matter of, they can fix themselves. No. It's a matter of they are now completed and they are now at the point where they are releasable. Problem is they were released before they got to that point, and the paying audience got to pay to be beta testers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that happens
like
quite
Destiny.
a bit.
Yeah.
I remember
when some are just crap, like Andromeda.
When the Master Chief Collection came out, that thing was so broken. It's pretty much a beta test.
Yeah,
you had to pay for.
And I see there's a little bit of confusion about what I'm saying in the chat here, but what I'm saying is basically a movie has a lot more revenue and avenues to make revenue back quickly compared to a game, is what I'm seeing here. Yeah,
they used to with DVD.
Yeah, they used to. Unfortunately, they're doing it to themselves. Yeah, you're not wrong there. But it's the end of the day, you spend $100 to $300 million on a movie right now. That ain't shit compared to what they used to know.
Do you know anybody that buys digital stuff, like digital movies?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, more people than you'd think.
I don't just steal it. To be honest, if I was going to go digital, I'd just pirate it.
It depends on the person, right? Yes, there are a lot more people that probably pirate stuff. I'm not going to lie there.
If I can't get a disc, I don't feel like I own it anyway.
Well, see, that's the thing is I think that there's a lot more people than you'd realize that are just fine playing digitally and watching things digitally. They don't have a disc collection, and they didn't care when a lot of these game systems switched. And I tried to warn people that this is not the way you're going to want things to go, because this was Microsoft's plan to begin with. But I mean, people are starting to learn with games the same thing some of the movie fans are, and that not everything is going to be there forever. Right? We were just talking about this the other day about the online games that are no longer available and stuff. Go ahead.
What was that? What was that platform that went under so all your digital stuff was lost?
Oh, the more recent one? Well, Sony shut all their shit down, but then
Sony shut theirs down. I know that. So like if you bought a digital movie on PlayStation, you lost it.
almost every day, though, I hear from somebody that they lost a movie on Vudu, Amazon, Apple, any one of those places. And it's the same now, starting to hear the same thing for games, right? Or games are no longer playable because they're not. It's like the other day we were talking about how the only games that are being active still, as far as like online games that don't have servers anymore, are being kept alive by the fans, basically. So, yeah, I mean, I'm curious how this is going to pan out, because I'm kind of watching it as a game fan of sorts, but I'm not a gamer. I never really have been. So,
Funimation, that's right. So Funimation, yeah. If you bought a bunch of digital anime through them, if you lost
Crunchyroll deal,
yeah, that's why I'll never buy digital stuff. I have a nice physical media collection. I'm happy to support physical media, but
the only time I buy digital is if I have
a
choice, and it's, again, I hate using the term buy because it's really pretty much long-term lease.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly what it is.
Well, the thing is the studio, it's in the law. You have the right to back up your shit. So, I mean, if you own it, you have the right to back it up. So anybody, you don't have to get rid. Like, I've told people before, because I've had people ask me about, like, well, I have all this physical media, whether it's games or it's, I don't know about games, how that would work. I'm backing them up. But movies, in the very least, you have the opportunity where you can rip them all and then go store your movies somewhere else while you have like a server with your movies on them.
You can do the same with games.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah, you can, but it's but depending on the original platform, it's maybe a challenge.
I say sometimes you have to have the disc to actually for the key and stuff.
An emulator.
Yeah, not everything.
StarCraft though. Yeah, StarCraft stopped me from playing its games because I refused to update to the latest software that required the latest platforms, and they cut off the old platforms, even though I bought it for an old platform. They went, you can't play it on that anymore. Wait a second, I bought it for that platform.
Right.
Sorry, that's bullshit.
Well, that's a situation where I'm sure you even had the disc.
I have the disc, yes.
Yeah, but you still can't do anything. That's my point. Yeah. See, that's the thing. It's worse with games, because at least with a DVD, all I got to do is find a workable DVD player or a Blu-ray player. You know what I mean? Like, that's the farthest I got to go.
But they connected it to BattleNet. Not everybody connects their games to an online service that requires
right. But that was the discussion we were having the other day, and that's just one of many other problems that
could play it on Nintendo 64. Yeah. There's the Nintendo 64 StarCraft.
How good was that? Though? I never played that version. I know PS has a version of it too for one of the later ones, but
are you kidding? I've never heard of it.
Let me double check, because I swear I've played.
I've never played it, but I think I've played the PS one they had for like PS3 a while back, and it was just wasn't the same.
Yeah, StarCraft 64.
Yep.
Here I found some gameplay, and you can see what it looks like. Yeah, I remember playing this at a friend's house, amazed that it ran on it, because I had it for PC. I played StarCraft and
we used to play
not World of Warcraft, but Warcraft 2. I
never got into Warcraft, but I did like Star.
Yeah, here it is, right here.
It looks somewhat like a very simplified version of it, but yeah.
Oh my god!
Not too bad. I missed that game.
I still have the CD for that.
God, I missed that.
There it is,
game.
running on Nintendo 64. I wonder if
I
that's
gotta dig it up.
It's got to be.
I'm sure somebody has patched it up by now. There's got to be people out there that have patched it up by now to where you can just play the damn thing.
I don't know how you would play it with a hand controller. You need a keyboard.
I know. Those are hard to put.
Well, that's why I didn't like playing on the PS one. Although I think that was StarCraft 2 or whatever, but yeah.
Real-time strategy games don't play very well on consoles. One did, though, and it's the one for Xbox, Halo Wars, I think it was called. I forget the actual name of it, but it's a real-time strategy Halo game, and it was made for controller.
Yeah. So, Andre,
pretty sure it's on Game Pass.
Anything else you wanted to cover with the Sweet Baby Ink stuff before we get back to some super chats here?
Yeah, well, only some specifics, because what intrigues me the most is how more and more are now coming to learn that Sweet Baby Inc. isn't the only company doing this, while the media in their end are desperate to try to say, because I've seen several articles that pick up on the Kotaku piece, like, no, it's just consulting. This has been going on for years. This is nothing. Pay no attention to it. Don't focus on all the other companies. Certainly, that is my take on that. So I'm like, curious, Yellow Flash. Like, do you think that gamers are going to remember this and be aware that Sweet Baby Inc., they're not the villain here. They're just one piece of the cog. There are many, many more, and they need to be more conscientious about where to spend their money. Do you think that gamers are going to remember this and maybe do some more research? Which other companies have been working on the game might consider buying before actually shelling out for it? What say you?
Yeah, there's a list that's been going around of all these other companies. One of them, my favorite, was called Gamer X. They work with Ubisoft, I believe. Gamer X, Gaymer.
Yeah, of course.
And then there's a couple other ones on there, but that list has been going around and it's been circulating quite a bit. I don't think this conversation is going to go away anytime soon, especially as more of these games come out. Yeah, there it is. That's it right there.
Yeah,
Anita Sarkeesian just married herself on her birthday.
Yeah, I saw that was fun. Yeah. Let's bring that story up. I believe I saw that story over at our good friends over at Fandom Pulse. I'll send you the link to that because that was hilarious.
I didn't even know that was.
I don't want to give her any publicity.
Oh,
I will for this because she might have. She thinks she did good at Gamergate, but she's losing at life. Imagine being like a 40-year-old woman and you get married to yourself. There's like a whole wedding. They had groomsmen and bridesmaids.
Tom, I put the link in the private chat here.
It's basically a publicity stunt. Let's be real. That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's a sad one.
It is. Well, to us it is because we see it for what it really is.
This summer, where she, for some reason, she went to Sweden. I don't know why she was in Sweden, but while in Sweden this summer, she celebrated her 41st birthday. And then she did an event where people came and everything, and it was something that she posted on Instagram, and that Instagram post is depicted further down on this page here, where she basically wrote, and she put a picture from her fake wedding. I did not get married, but I did have a wedding-themed birthday in Stockholm this summer. It was goofy and silly and fun. We had a bachelor party, rehearsal, dinner, ceremony, and reception all in one. People dressed up in the best costumes, from brides, divorced lawyer, drunk uncle, and a ring bearer. Massive thanks to everyone who helped pull it off. And why would you do something like this? Is what I'm curious about. And like, I wasn't.
Who would want to attend it?
She obviously didn't really get married. It was just a themed birthday party. But
go to the picture. Is the picture?
Yeah, it's there. It's on screen.
Is the picture on there where she's standing in front of the priest?
I don't see that one.
It's just her. You know, you go up with your partner and
right.
But it's just her on a big carpet, and then they have the little setup there where the priest marries her to herself. I'm confused on this. Seems like very sad. I don't know why you would post this and think you're like winning at life here. Because this is pathetic.
This is the narcissism in this fucking generation. Not that she's our generation anyway.
Her actual boyfriend was there too. Yeah. Imagine being that guy.
So she has.
Well, and again, I'm not.
So she has a boyfriend?
Yeah, there's some dude that she's kissing in one of the pictures. They were going around all day yesterday. Some dude she's kissing. So I don't know where he's just in like a gray collared shirt. He's probably sitting in the audience.
So he dodged a bullet?
That's my girlfriend.
Yeah, he dodged a bullet. Yeah. But we are losing Paul here soon, so like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I looked, Paul, on eBay. StarCraft 64 is an expensive game. Buy it now.
It's
Just the
expensive?
game, $130.
Forget it.
You want it with the box? You're talking $239.
Wow.
Jesus.
I didn't know it was that rare. I just barely remembered it. But
Well, we will have to make it to your show again. I blew it, and I apologize. And
I figured
hopefully
you
you'll
fell
invite me
asleep.
again. No, what happened was my wife said, "Hey, let's watch a movie together," which
What'd you
never
watch?
happens. The Holdovers.
Oh, did you enjoy it at least?
Yeah, a very actually unexpected movie. What didn't go the way I thought. It was a very gentle, light movie, and my apologies, gentlemen. So please feel free to invite me again, so I can forget again.
All right, well, we'll try to get you back on here. All right, but on that, I don't necessarily, as far as I can tell, see any super chats that are specific for you unless I missed them, which if I did, I apologize later. So yeah, we can let you scooch out of here.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. So please catch me on
TV Guide.
On TV Guide's coming. It's being written over the weekend now, and also Call Me Chato. I've got my reminiscences of performing and working at Just for Laughs, which has filed for bankruptcy protection. It's a phenomenal comedy festival in Montreal. So that's a fun video. I reminisce about working with Graham Chapman and Rowan Atkinson and Jim Carrey, and then on Appalling News, I'm just leaving up my chest feeding video. So that's offended an awful lot of people.
Yeah, I got to watch it when the thumbnail was pretty funny. Best chest
Thank
feeder.
you. Yes, men make the best chest feeders. So you'll have to watch that. Yes, everything is offensive on Appalling News, which is why I call it Appalling News. It's like, that's the brand. Don't be offended. You went in knowing that you're going to be appalled.
You're pre-warned.
So have a wonderful weekend, everyone. You've been pre-warned and
right.
pre-washed, like my jeans. See you later, everyone. Bye.
Take care, Paul.
Have a nice weekend.
All right. Anything else on this Sweet Baby Stink stuff before we? Because I'm sure the audience will bring it back up.
Well, they failed to take down the curator. That was the biggest
curator
news.
is growing very nicely. Let's just do an update and see. 225,000 right now.
Yeah, they tried to take it down, and the curator put out the other day that he was able to stop the reports. So it's not going anywhere, despite all that big journalism trying to take it down. It's just another L.
Yeah, no, it needs to be expanded with the lists of the other companies, because that's a great place for not just Sweet Baby Inc., but all of the other companies doing the same thing as them. To me, that's the important thing that I really hope that gamers will take away from this. That honestly, gamers, you've done your part in this. All the stuff that's going on in gaming since Gamergate, you're partially to blame. If you've been buying AAA titles that has any of this stuff and you knew in advance and you didn't get a refund, you're partially to blame. Because these games, they all need to bomb terribly. They all need to pull a Suicide Squad. And the beauty is that with the way that the industry is right now, with all the bloat, with all the overhead, they are all the more sensitive to the audience just withholding their money. And it's the easiest thing in the world to do. Just don't buy the latest triple game that has been worked on by Sweet Baby Inc. or any of the other companies that does the exact same thing as them. Play another game. Hell, play the Starfield on the Super Nintendo on some emulator. Like, do whatever. You'll have a better experience.
The problem with a lot of this, like Spider-Man 2, for example, that game sold on the faith of the first, like the good faith from the first one.
That's exactly what
first
I mean.
One,
and that's
the first one was really good. Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Well,
it came out. Nobody knew who I didn't know who Sweet Baby was when that game came out. Like nobody really had heard of them yet. And that game, the shit that's in that game compared to the first one is night and day. Because that first one was really good. And then the second one comes out, everyone's excited and buys it. I'd really be interested in seeing where the sales on that game are now. Like, if you could compare the first two. We can't compare them because they don't give us digital sales, but I would be willing to bet that word of mouth hit that game.
Well, and the only way you can really combat it up front is never pre-order, right? And then once you hear if a game's good, fine. But if it's not, then you have to act accordingly. And I think Andre's correct, because this is the same kind of warning I sent to the Snyder hose when the Batman was coming out and some of them were losing their shit over it. I'm like, just a reminder, if you go see this and this is even remotely successful, it's going to spell the end for anything Snyder going forward. Just keep that in mind. And a lot of those folks didn't listen to me, and they still went and saw
that good
it.
faith, like Wolverine, the next Insomniac game. Like,
there you go.
I'm not buying that game.
We already have a way to treat it. Yeah,
we already have one of the people that work on that game. Someone grabbed a bunch of her tweets that she's liked and stuff about hating white people and all of this stuff. And I believe Sweet Baby is working on that game too. So, but those tweets are enough. Like, I'm just tired of these people. So I'll be passing on Wolverine 2. And I think a lot of people are going to pass on Spider-Man 3 because they've already came out and said that Miles Morales is going to be the star of Spider-Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
That game, we do know, sold less than half of Spider-Man 1, the Miles Morales one. Sold half of what the numbers of the first one did. So that'll be fun to see.
Mm. Well, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. We got Victor Von Doom here who says, remove the heart of the snake, then watch the reptile wither and die. Mwah, Larry Fink. There you go. TND Knickers sends in $2, says DEI is just demonic, very tired of it and everything. Yeah, I think a lot of folks are. And I agree with Andre. I think we need to expand that list beyond just gaming and Sweet Baby Inc. stuff. It should be through all assets.
The curator himself is the one that needs to update it to include all of the others. He can call it the same thing, but the information needs to be there with
Disney basically at the top of the list on the
Sweet Baby Inc. adjacent.
Wow. Are you sure they're going to be adjacent, or will they be?
There'll be adjuncts to it.
Exactly.
There is one good Sony game. There's a good Sony game coming out for PC players this month. Ghosts of Tsushima.
Wait, so they couldn't even put it on the PlayStation?
No, it was PlayStation exclusive. It's finally coming to PC. Highly recommend.
Okay. So it already is on the PlayStation.
Highly recommend Ghosts of Tsushima. That game is amazing. And the meltdown that game caused was also hilarious because they were mad because it's a Western studio that made it, and they were calling it cultural appropriation and all of this stuff. And the best part was when the game came out in Japan, like the Japanese people loved it and praised it, and all the Kotakus all lost their mind because everyone was telling them to fuck off because the Japanese people liked it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and here's one thing I can see with this.
They started to call them Nazis again too.
I feel like this is just round one, because what will happen now is that these companies will just change their name and or restructure how they do what they do. They won't change what they do. They'll just change how we perceive it, or at least they'll want to change that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of the same thing with every other thing. We've seen it in film and television and other things. It just takes another form and another form until it's finally dissipated out, like to where I have a feeling in the next 2 years here, on the entertainment side of things, we're definitely going to see a lot less woke material and injected bullshit. I mean, we even have movies like with Dune too, where we could make an argument that, yeah, the movie itself isn't necessarily woke, but there are some woke DEI elements that have been shoved into it without people noticing it, or at least to the point where some people are debating it anyway, as we saw last week on your show, and we've seen here on our show and other places. So I think for a while we're gonna have to deal with it still being there, but it's gonna be like we're gonna be peeling back layers at least to where it's like, okay, is this really what we think it is, or are we starting to get back to normal? And then over a couple of years, hopefully it'll feel like we've made some progress there. But I wonder if gaming it's gonna take a lot longer, because I don't know.
We'll have a good Flashcast tomorrow. Might be good if because it's looking like Grums is going to come on. Mark Kern. So he's a legendary developer. I got to double
Really?
check with him tonight to make sure the time zones will work out, but it sounds like he's coming on tomorrow.
Cool. Then Jason Webster says news. Soraku, I'm probably saying this wrong. Saruka Ando has won Best Lead Actress for Monster at the 47th Japan Academy Film Awards or Film Prize. Ando also scored a win for Best Supporting Actress for Godzilla -1 earlier in the ceremony. And on that note, while we're at it, Jason Webster says also Koji Hashimoto has won Outstanding Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role for Perfect Days. Takashi Yamazaki won Best Screenplay for Godzilla -1. And then Jason goes on to say Wim Wenders has won Best Director for Perfect Days, while Godzilla -1 has scored biggest award of the 47th Academy Award Prize, winning Best Film.
Nice.
So yeah, Godzilla -1, as he points out here, has dominated the 47th annual Japan Academy Film Prize ceremony, winning 9 awards, including Best Film. So congratulations to Godzilla -1 for winning all sorts of awards in Japan. Good job. Well deserved.
I can't wait to see that movie.
You still haven't seen it, sadly.
No, it has to come
Where's
out
the
in
4K?
digital before I even can see it.
I'm
What's
hearing
the
two
4K
rumors.
disc?
I'm hearing May and I'm hearing July. So my guess is it's probably coming to Japan in July or May, and it'll be here in July, I think.
Hell, still have to wait till summer.
Yeah, because that means it won't have any subtitles in Japan.
Exactly.
Somebody will do subtitles for it. Don't worry.
I can't wait to get the 4K disc. I'm not watching it till I
Yeah,
get my
know.
4K disc.
Well, and I'm really getting antsy because they've released like the first 4 or 5 Godzilla
I know, I
movies
bought
now in
some.
4K in Japan,
But
but they don't have any fucking subtitles on them.
It's okay. I don't need them.
Well, some of them I can understand, but
I've seen them so many times anyway.
fair enough. But
I mean, they'll bring them here eventually. I'm not going to
Yeah, I
buy
know.
all of them.
Yeah.
I just bought 1 or 2 of them because I just wanted to see how good they looked.
I will, just because those, as cool as that Criterion Collection was to have, those are some really piss poor transfers on most of those.
Yeah,
in
some
fact,
of them are a little rough.
from my understanding, a large portion of Godzilla versus Kong has been lost.
Yeah, the Japanese version was rough. Like I watched.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
Yeah,
the first time we got the Japanese version.
That's
was through
why,
that Criterion
because
Collection.
it's all been lost. For surprisingly, the Universal version of it's in a lot better shape, I guess. So I guess they didn't, for whatever happened back then, they didn't take care of the negative, or it was on a really shit stock or something. To where, yeah, the only parts that really exist in good material are the American version now. That's what I've read. If somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding, is they lost the negative for a lot of that.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, isn't it? Chaos Sonic 1 says, Tom, you may gloat because Zack Snyder opened his mouth, and now people who are for the Zack Snyder DC universe regret it immediately. Oh, well, I haven't seen anybody instant regret, but what a doozy of an interview that was.
Yeah,
Just reinforcing the fact that I'm happy he's gone.
Well, I mean, look, the 10 minutes he talked about Superman, Batman, that's nothing new. We've already heard him say that stupid shit before.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be for everyone listening, we're talking about him on Joe Rogan now, right?
Yes.
Well, Graham Nolan even had some choice words to say about the idiocy of Zack Snyder's comments on these characters. So that's already making some waves.
You mean recently? I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, just this morning, I think.
What did he say? Do you have a
he said that his opinions were like the dumbest he had ever heard of someone.
That sounds about right.
And I'm like,
that sounds right. Yeah, I believe that.
Well, he talked
Zack
about
Snyder's movies. His DC comic book movies are dog shit trash.
Yeah,
some of the worst comic book movies I've ever seen. Especially Batman versus Superman. That movie is colossal piece of shit. And his Superman movie is not who Superman is. This is awful fucking piece of shit. Trying to be a Batman movie almost. Sucks.
Not almost, quite literally.
So did you check this out too, Andre? Or
no, I have seen I've seen the titles of clips, but I have not seen the entire thing. No. I don't know that I'm going to.
I can paraphrase it down for most part. They sit there and talk about gay shit for about an hour. And then they talk about Batman and Superman for about 10 minutes. And then he talks about his ego for like another 10, 15 minutes.
Oh,
And
is that where he
somewhere-
said more people watched his
More people watched Barbie or watched Rebel Moon than Barbie.
Rebel
he tried
Moon
to
than
claim.
Barbie? Yeah, right.
And then he's like all claiming like, oh, it'd have been a huge hit in theaters and all this stuff. And it's like,
Sure, Zach.
Nobody
Sure,
would.
Zach.
It would have been a huge bomb. Nobody's talking. I couldn't even remember the name of it. Now you said it.
Yeah.
I couldn't even remember the name. Barbie, whether you like it or not, had a cultural impact.
exactly.
That Rebel Moon movie, nobody watched. Nobody is talking about it a week after it came out. It's gonna come and go. He'll talk about his 6-hour cut that no
He
one
talked
gives a
about that
fuck
for
about.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
6 hours of his shit. Fuck that.
6 hours of slow-mo. That's what it is.
And then, it's like, and then he gets into this bit about the whole Spartan thing. And that's the thing that really kind of gave me and other
No,
people
I like
pause.
300. 300.
Well, and this is what I think Chaos Sonic 1 is actually alluding to. Because during that conversation, I got to try and keep this as YouTube friendly as possible. They talk about how the Spartans used to take young boys and
This is
not
true,
just
actually.
teach
I haven't heard
them,
it, but that's true.
but having their way with them as well. And they
that
got
was a Greek
really
thing.
they got really giddy talking about this. It was really fucking weird, and they were making really weird fucking excuses for it.
Oh my god!
And then the
Joe
conversation
Rogan?
comes back, and he was kind of agreeing ish with him. And then it gets played around again when they're talking about if the world went to an apocalypse, how it would be great if they went back to the way the Spartans lived again. And I'm just sitting here thinking, do you realize what you just said about 10, 15 minutes ago? Like, because their whole thing was they did it because that way you were in love with the person you were in the battlefield. They tried to play it off like it was love. I'm like, okay, if you taught me everything I need to know about you, Mr. Zack Snyder, you're making excuses for kitty diddlers. I'm done.
Spartans were an interesting society. They like
I don't care. That's one part I don't have to fucking agree with.
Well, I mean, this is hundreds of years ago.
I don't care.
This is I didn't. The Greeks were weird people for sure, but it wasn't just a
separate
Spartan
the men
thing.
from the boys with a crowbar back then. Like
That's
you
it.
Athens was worse than Spartan. Athens were worse than the Spartans.
It was not so much that he brought it up. It could have been one thing just to bring it up as far as like historical thing. It was the way he was talking about it and the excuses he was making for it. That's what bothered me. And then it came back around again because they even brought up the controversy with the whole gay stuff that people were coming after the comic and movie about. The gay community, I guess, went after it. And then he just went and said 300 is the gayest movie ever made. So there you go, kids. And I'm pretty much convinced that Zack Snyder is a closet homosexual at this point.
Most people in Hollywood are.
he's adopted a lot of kids, and I think he's got 3 biological ones. So,
But we had a good time at his expense last night.
That's funny that he did that, considering he put that boy lovers in Athens line in there.
I
even brings that up.
Line has
he even
always
addresses
stood
it.
out to me.
Oh, does
he even
he?
addresses
What
it.
did he say?
He said, well, he didn't mean it like that. He meant it in, how did he put it, script? Because he was still, again, it was basically making excuses that it was okay that the Spartans were doing this. Like it was just, it's a good thing.
Sadly, I did not get to that clip yet.
Even the
It was at
boy
the very
lovers in
end.
Athens have turned you down.
Yeah, because that
Yeah, that
line
was-
always stood out to me because, like, when you know the real history, the Spartans were tough warriors and all, but that particular insult is one they really should not be throwing at anyone else. I mean, if there ever was some level of projection, it was that.
Yeah, a lot of Greek kid diddling. That was the whole area, not just Spartans.
Yeah.
They all kept their women locked up, and they fucked each other basically. Because like even in Athens, was like the women would stay in the house and homemake and raise the kids, and the men were like all fucking each other in the city.
I mean, it's no wonder the Persians called them barbarians. So yeah, or consider them savages.
Educated women, like the only women that could get an education were the prostitutes.
That's so they
could
negotiate rates.
Yeah, they could negotiate and entertain the powerful men that fucked them.
And then on that note, DCB Titan says, well, wasn't Leonidas's wife his half-brother's daughter? Crazy times. Well, yeah. I mean,
Mrs. Spartan women were free in the chat. Yeah, but like they fucked everybody. Like the men were encouraged to fuck like their friends' wives so that they could make Spartans.
It's one thing to discuss it. It's another thing with the way they were talking about it. It's just, yeah. Anyway, Rico Zorro says, you see it for yourself. Don't take away what I say from it. Go ahead and watch it for yourself. It's 2 hours of your life you'll never get back. But at least it's not as long as the Snyder cut.
Yeah. And more people who like Zack Snyder will watch it to the end than those of the Snyder cut.
This is very true. And that was the other thing about the whole Barbie versus Rebel Moon thing. It's like, how many people actually walked out in the middle of Barbie? Because that's the thing. Most people didn't finish watching Rebel Moon. In fact, I think the numbers are pretty close to what we had heard about from the Justice League. About 60% checked out. Like, in fact, we had our guest last night said the same thing. He's like, yeah, I checked out after about a half hour.
I believe that.
Which means he didn't even watch half of it. So like, that's barely the beginning. Anyway, Rico Zorro says, do you guys have insight on who has the edge coming into the shareholders voting for the Disney board? Will it be Triton or Blackwell leading the way? Or Tryon, I mean, sorry. Well, as we said earlier, unless Andre wants to add or subtract from this, I think this time out, they don't have much of a chance of getting in, but they're still going to continue to be a thorn in the company's side, basically. What do you say,
better be, because otherwise it's going to be the biggest flop in Trion career, and that is not how Nelson Peltz wants to go out. And the problem here, of course, just so we are completely clear about that, is that most of those who are entitled to vote are IGO, if not psychopaths, then they are the BlackRocks and the Vanguards and the State Streets and those big institutional people who are all in on what Iger is doing. That is the challenge here. Whereas the people who support Peltz are typically smaller investors who actually want to earn money on their Disney shares, and there just may not be enough of them compared to the big institutional ones to provide the votes needed here. That's the challenge.
Well, not only that, I guess, I'm not going to get into it anymore because we got other super chats, but yeah, I think that's a good way to just leave it.
Yeah.
Then we got Toga Free, who says with $4.99, did you hear about it? What Snyder said about Watchmen, his ex-wife and son. It's 6 minutes in, naked mom slap. Script doctor, please spill the beans. Yeah, this was another bit that stuck out. Was like, okay, his son plays the young version of Rorschach, right? And in that scene where he's like, Mom, is that man hurting you? And she slaps him or whatever. He wanted the actress to be topless. And he had his son play the part just so it would be easier to deal with, instead of dealing with another kid actor. Well, he wanted the woman to be topless, but the people who are in charge of that said, no way, the studio or whatever it was.
Can't have it. That.
Yeah, the only way you could have that be that way is if it's his mother. And his mother actually happened to be on the set that day. And he tells the story about how he gave her a shot, and she obviously knew what he meant right away. And she's like, oh no, I'm not doing it. So yeah, but it's just like, dude, seriously, that would have traumatized that kid for fucking life. Like, this guy has no fucking, I'm not even gonna get into this. Yeah.
No, he is mentally disturbed.
Yeah. This one. Yeah.
That was one of them. One of his many stories.
Yeah, okay. The European is going to shut up about this one. So I'll just move on.
The investigative examiners, heads up. The investigative examiner says at $4.99, says, heads up, rumor has it Inside Out 2 is going to be about a lesbian propaganda piece. Yes, I've heard similar things. When they say they're coming for your kids, they mean it. Watch the trailer. Have you guys seen the trailer yet?
No.
Yeah, it looks bad.
I can't wait to laugh at the movie losing money.
Well, what they showed in the trailer was obviously what's her face, Haley or whatever, Riley, the kid from the first movie. She's, becoming a teenager now, and new emotions are being introduced, like anxiety and a bunch of other stupid ones that make no sense for why they're there. And they bottle up all her original emotions while at the same time she's all giddy over this chick. Now, the trailer doesn't necessarily make it seem like she's into the chick that way, but could be perceived that way. We'll have to wait and see. But both WDW Pro and the guys over at that Park Place, and I myself even heard a passing rumor that was part of the plot. And frankly,
the hormones area. Okay.
Yeah. And the only bit in the whole trailer that made me laugh was when the daughter was just like, when the anxiety and shit's all introduced to her, the next morning she wakes up and her hair's all a mess and she's all freaking out at her mom. She's like, "Mom, just get out of here," or something like that. And then you zoom into the mom's head and you see her emotions and you're like, "Yep, that's a preview of the next 10 years. Like, that was about the only part I laughed at. It's like, as a parent of a teenager, I got that. But like from there on out, and I said this last night, my whole problem with not just this movie, but the original Inside Out in general, not just the fact that it was already done better as Herman's Head to begin with, but it was done better as Herman's Head to begin with, because Herman's Head was meant for adults. I don't think Inside Out was necessarily a great idea for kids, and taking it to this level is going to be even worse, because this movie is not being aimed towards 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids who could be having conversations about anxiety and things they're dealing with. It's geared towards 5, 6, 7-year-old kids who shouldn't be thinking about things like anxiety, because then it's all going to do is cause anxiety in them.
Well, that's the point. I mean,
unless you're making fun of anxiety, because kids can laugh at that.
They can, but they don't understand it necessarily as a concept yet, depending on the child.
Right.
Again, it all depends on the child. But we talked about this last night, and all the parents on the panel kind of agreed that the fact that, that's introducing some more complicated emotions that kids may not necessarily understand yet. And the problem with kids is once you introduce some thoughts and ideas like that, then that can exacerbate that problem, is all I was getting at.
And also, I don't think, if I may, just the whole therapy thing, this seems to me to be a lot of projection on the neurotic, nervous wrecks that wrote this movie for Disney, because they're probably all about therapists and need therapy all the time. So to them, it's the most natural thing in the world to write about therapy. Oh, this is something everyone does and everyone has and everyone needs. It's a completely natural thing. And this is a movie that's going to prepare kids for being gay and having therapy. Well, maybe those writers had that and thinks everyone else needed that. But again, it's a movie that is going to alienate most of the audience around the world. And that's probably bad for 99 out of 100 kids to watch.
Well, and I got to ask Yellow Flash, because he's, and, Andre, you have a young kid too, so feel free to chime in on this. But I mean, I'm lucky I'm out of the woods. Like, I raised my kid on decent Simpsons and Looney Tunes and stuff like that, and he likes SpongeBob and his PBS Kids stuff and whatnot growing up. So for the most part, that stuff was okay. I can't imagine wading through this swamp of bullshit with a young child now, because I know you got one up and coming now, Flash. You
anime.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, what are you going to do? But Andre, I know you two have also 2 youngins, so yeah.
You can go online and find tons of shows that are pre-2000 that are great for kids to grow up and watch.
True. But I'm just curious, as adults, or as parents, I should say, how Flash you're going to navigate that.
I've got
anime.
so many anime Blu-rays, and not too worried about it. That's what we'll be watching.
Yeah, for when I have kids, I'm going to use the same program model I use for my god kids, which is on my media server. It's basically, I've got daily, just like I programmed a network, I have daily stuff that they could watch for the time they spent over at my place. And it went from the Friendly Giant, Postman Pat, Rupert the Bear, Tintin cartoons, Batman the Animated Series, some X-Men, Spider-Man, Super Friends.
You guys are
those.
man.
So
Andre's going to laugh at this. This is so cute that you think your kids are going to watch what you want them to watch.
Well, if that's all I showed them at the beginning, I mean, that's what's going to be the case. Right?
Kids are going to turn around. But Andre knows what I'm getting at. They come home from school, and what is it? Here you go. Go take it, Andre. Yeah.
Well, basically, I have the stuff that I want them to see, and it goes about as well as if my dad had tried to get me into the stuff that, well, actually he did do that, but I was never into Bonanza. It's the exact same thing. Like, they react to me trying to show some historical stuff the same way as my dad did when my dad tried to get him into Bonanza. I did not watch Bonanza. The kids today, they have other stuff. They have their friends who watch
and their recommendations. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So all and
SpongeBob was one I
also
never accounted for.
also another thing which really bothers me, when they have been raised with this really glitzy, flashy 3D animation and stuff like that, unfortunately, it's very hard for them to watch other stuff. I'm just going to come, but at a certain age, maybe the most important age, it's difficult. Puppetry, however, puppetry actually works. That's a very easy transition. But 2D animation, slightly less so. I mean, yeah, your big Disney classics and stuff like that, yeah, that's always a hit, even with the 2D animation. But like, for instance, something a little bit more rough, like a 2D animated series, like your He-Man Filmation kind of stuff. At least in my experience, of course, everyone is going to be individual, but that's a hard sell.
Yeah,
Oh
I mean,
yeah, it can be,
you hit what I was
especially if
gonna
you're
say.
late to the game on that, right? Because
Yeah.
again, like I said, my godkids, they would come over and they would actually watch right after school. They'd watch Batman the Animated Series and X-Men, like I did in the '90s. Then they'd turn on SpongeBob, which I never knew about until then. But the thing is, like all
That's
of
a
our,
hit.
we showed them the stuff first before they got to see the modern day stuff. That's how you kind of curtail that a little bit. And as parents, you have control over that because again, all you have to do is just keep that remote control of the TV out of reach. and you can
That's
pick
true.
what's going
Yeah.
on. But as
That's
they
what I
get
was just
older,
saying, yeah.
it's a lot harder to do because then they have more agency, then they can go explore stuff.
Exactly.
And then that's basically that
And
just
that's kind
challenges
of
your
the
own parenting skills. And you can
and I
have
had
fun
the
with
same
that.
experience with my kid. My kid was just never outside of past, like I said, he got interested in cartoons, certain ones.
Mhm.
And that was one thing I never had a problem with him with was he would actually watch 2D cartoons. But I could never get him into movies. He was never a movie fan, but he took to games like a fish to water. I was never a big gamer, but that was his thing. And regardless, it was not my thing. But like that's why I said good luck trying to get your kid into what you want them to be into, because it seems like that's the thing is I tried to get my kid into Star Wars. I tried to get my kid into things that I thought he'd be interested in.
Mhm.
The only things he ended up enjoying were things that when he discovered them on his own. Like one day I come
yeah.
home and he's watching Short Circuit. And
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
Short Circuits is a great movie.
who made you watch this? And he's like, no, buddy, it was just on TV and I thought it looked funny. So it was like, it's just kind of like that's the thing. Now I tried to get him to watch it probably a half a dozen times, but it didn't matter. It wasn't on his terms. Right.
Yeah.
And that's another
And
thing with a lot of
he had a
kids.
stigma about it. It's like, oh, this is a dad thing, right? I know those stigmas. I had that
But it's the
before.
same thing with me. Like my dad tried shoving Westerns down my throat as a kid.
And Bond?
And
No Bond?
No Bond. He was never into Bond. He was not so much into that kind of stuff, but he loved Western, or he loves Westerns and stuff like that. But like as a kid, I reject, like Andre said, like he would try to watch, make me sit down and watch like Bonanza or Gunsmoke. And I was like, I don't
Oh,
know.
that's what my dad with me.
Exactly. It's like, and finally when I clicked with it was when I was more like a teenager and I went on my own and I discovered like the Clint Eastwood stuff. Right. And that's kind of where it led me into it. And then we bonded later over that kind of stuff. And he's like, well, you got to check out like John Wayne and this and that and the other. And then, it was a little different because then it was me coming to him and asking him then, and not the other way around, him trying to force it down my throat, which is the same thing with this other stuff we're dealing with now. Right. It'd be one thing if people were actually interested in it and they came to it on their own, but no, people aren't asking for this. Nobody's coming to this and discovering and going, oh, I'm so glad I finally got the fucking Marvels. I've been asking for that all my whole life and I didn't even know I needed it. It's like,
No, yeah, that's the true case. I mean, that's why I went with the programming method, because it's like all the blocks were all in the day. So all the kids had to do was just scroll through and they'd pick on whatever thumbnail looked good. And then that's what they would watch. But it was all the stuff that I controlled. One of the things that disappointed me is my second eldest godson, who got into aeronautical engineering, never liked Star Trek. Like to this day, still doesn't like Star Trek. Really bugs me. But it was on the program for him, but he never selected it. He always wanted to see Star Wars, Transformers, Silver Wolf, or Silver. I can't remember what it was.
Well, you know what? It can still happen. It can still happen that suddenly one day it's going to realize, why have this not been part of my
that's
life?
what I meant by the Westerns thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I'm doing right now with music. Like I've spent the last 25 years listening to 99% Rammstein, and I missed out on so many other things. And then I learned that all the stuff I missed out on was pre-2000, because 99% of everything after has been a bunch of shit.
Andre, you're going to graduate from Kiss to Alice Cooper, and you're going to thank us all.
Oh no, I'm already into Alice Cooper. I haven't
So
seen
you
him live.
actively went back to Kiss. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, yeah,
Usually
no,
Kiss is
Alice
the
Cooper
first
I
step
knew.
to Alice Cooper, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm discovering Megadeth right now.
Oh yeah, so yeah, you bypassed that. Then you're on the Megadeth already. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
No, I know my Alice Cooper.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say because he's kind of that's the in betweener. So you're already moved on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and don't get sucked into AC/DC. You already know the song.
No,
They're a gateway. Then you go into other.
Yeah,
stuff.
you've already. Yeah, that's like preschool
I'm
shit.
already past the gateways.
That was pretty much how my kid got into it. It's the same thing with music, man. That was the thing with music because he's got a great taste in music for the most part. And again, it was partially, I'm sure, some of the stuff he heard me listening to. But when he was little, he would control the radio sometimes too because I just wanted him to be happy and I didn't want to hear him bitch. But eventually, we just found things that we could commonly like. But he just started gravitating towards some of my favorite things on his own. He would start discovering them, and I thought it was kind of cool. Now, I wish he wouldn't listen to so much Green Day and Linkin Park, but hey. That's just me, my personal taste. I don't care about the bands themselves. It's not like a parent going, I just can't agree with what they're singing. And it's just like, they're just not my taste. Right. Like, I'd rather
music.
Yeah, I like it. He listens to like Pink Floyd and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and all that stuff, like Alice Cooper, all that business. So like, yeah, he's all into the class. Like our music tastes are very, very similar in that respect. That's the only place we deviate is the Linkin Park Green Day bit. But we're losing Yellow Flash here pretty soon, so we got a few super chats that I think are specific for you. Let me scroll down here while I'm looking for some. Why don't you read this one for Script Doctor Andre?
Certainly. Accident Seller says for 50 Norwegian krona, tusen takk. For Script Doctor, off topic. Biden's State of the Union. He said he would ban AI voice impersonations. Sad, as I love playing around with actors' voices. Thoughts?
I think that's a travesty, and they shouldn't let him do
it. Well, that's something to think about. I generally, I think the rights of an individual's voice should be owned by themselves, and if they wish to license it out for impersonation through AI, that should be their own agency. I don't think it should be stolen in that sense. One of the things that I have been learning, because again, one of the projects I'm working on, I'm actually coordinating with a lot of higher ups in the AI development sphere, and they're very, very worried about basically kind of like a replicated fading type of process with the learning algorithms. And they're trying to, the only way that happens is through the creative sphere. So when AIs generate images and they draw from other images to create those images, what they don't realize is that AI is also drawing from other AI images. And the same thing comes to written text. And it ends up having basically like eating their own vomit type of approach. And it's causing the degradation of those networks that they're building. And so what what big tech has finally started to realize, at least the ones that I've been coordinating with, is that they don't want AI to be used for creative purposes because it's going to actually ruin the system. So they're trying to gear it back into problem solving, which basically means like mathematical, science, chemistry, those types of things, because it doesn't require, imagination, creative input to solve the problem, or new information and new calculations can always be formulated because of the way math and computer systems function. It can't work on creative level. So that's what they're gearing it towards. I think the market itself and the way the technology is functioning is going to basically put a larger distance between AI and creative works and AI impersonations and AI doppelgangers and stuff of that nature, because it's not going to have a useful effect on the model. Like if some model is created where it, say, takes, for instance, President Biden, and it can map his entire personality, his movement and stuff, and then it generates new things. Well, the next generation of AI will actually use that AI generation to interpret him again, and it's just going to keep on degrading and degrading, kind of like the way current President Biden is in reality. So it's not going to be a useful product in the future. And exactly. And one of the things that's actually true is interesting is that the tech companies don't see any way of properly preventing that from happening. They basically look at it as a form of like arrested development, where if you have an isolated community somewhere in the middle of nowhere with no access to technology, no communication of stories or experiences from the elders to the youngers, it's always just going to be in the same thing, and it's eventually going to die out. And in order for them to sustain their models, they have to actually rely on humanity in order to do that.
Yeah.
and they'd rather have that done on actual problems like economic, mathematical, scientific, as opposed to we need to come up with the next big IP that's going to make $1 billion at the box office.
Right.
And we need to resurrect actors like James Dean and Marlon Brando to make those work. I'm glad that they're pushing away from that, but it's
basically the short version of what Script Doctor just said is AI is basically number 4 in multiplicity.
Yes, and it's actually going to get further and further down.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah, they have to shave him at night and then give him a fake razor without a blade in the morning.
You know how when you make a copy of a copy and it just isn't quite as sharp as the original? Hey, Steve. I love that fucking movie. Yes, that's a very, very long way of putting it, but yes, that is kind of the truth. No, it's true though. It's degrading itself through the
yeah. Did we have
there's one more. There was one that had a shout out to him here. I think that was it that I saw. Where'd it go here? I just had it and then I accidentally scrolled away from it. But yeah, the Yellow Flash real quick. You got tomorrow night, you got your show. Here it is. Tommy Review says, Hail Midnight's Edge and Flash. I'm working on an article for Fandom Pulse about how David Jaffe, creator of God of War, is defending SBI and calls gamers phobes. There you go. That was the one for you.
Yeah, he's an ass. So I don't listen to anything he says. I think he's trying to get back into the industry or something. That's why he's acting like such a cuck.
Yeah, probably, because if he goes, everyone who is defending Sweet Baby Inc. right now in public, they do it because there's something to be gained by it. Because now you're going to show, look, I'm a team player. I'm on the right side of industry. Hire me.
Yeah, exactly. I can't stand him. He tries to act like he's Mr. Reason, but he's just another industry piece of shit.
Well, because there's no other reason why anyone should support them. And with that, yeah, I think that's everything for you. So thanks for joining us. We love having you here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see you guys next Friday. And
all right,
Tom, I'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds
Excellent.
Good. Take care.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
All right. And on that note, we got some more super chats to get through here. Armchair Troop sends in a Canadian $10, says, hey, Tom and Script Doctor, just watched last night's stream. Could you each say 5 nice things? Say 5, I think he means things about Zack Snyder. Oh boy. Could I come up with 5 things? You asked the 2 worst people besides Clobbering Times that question.
I appreciate that he's always in public wearing clothes.
Oh, you took one of mine. No, I'm joking. I didn't even think of that one because his clothes are kind of gay.
But at least he's wearing them when we can't see anything else.
You're starting to sound like him. No.
I think that's it.
Dawn of the Dead was okay. The Watchmen was watchable.
He does have an interesting eye for visuals, but they're mostly recreations of other people's work, like an AI.
Interesting you say that, yeah. You know what the funny thing about last night's stream was? Here's one good thing I can say about Zack Snyder. It's the first time I haven't had to request a review for demonetization. Evidently, YouTube does not protect him. That's about the best I can come up with at this point.
Is that 3, I guess?
He cast Ben Affleck as Batman, I guess. Henry Cavill could have been a decent Superman. Too bad Snyder couldn't. See, that's the problem with every praise I give Snyder. There's a but.
There's always a but. Yeah.
There's always a but. You know? I can't think of anything else.
I think that's the best we're going to do for Armchair Troop.
Oh, he's stuck to straight to streaming now, so I don't have to worry about his stupid movies being in theaters. Well, you know, I guess there's that. Yeah, that's the best we can do. Sorry about that, Armchair Troop, that I can't come up with anything better. Big Raj sent us in. I believe it's a thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already, and thank you for that, Big Raj. We appreciate the support. Imaginary Number sends in €10 and says Peltz just needs 1 seat and get access to internal board documents. Disney does not act in the interest of shareholders and he would be legally obligated to report malpractice and gross negligence. Oh, I'm sure he would. I'm sure that's one of his main goals.
And that's why Bob Iger doesn't want him on the board.
Which is why, I mean, I was kind of asking that question for the audience as well, but yeah. Because, I mean, I would think, you know, on one side of it, there's this. So what's stopping him from doing that? There's your answer. So, yeah. Pinochet's helicopter tour says you wouldn't have a bit of cheese about you, boy. I don't get this.
¿Qué pasó?
Yeah. I don't get this one.
Yeah, that rings a bell, but I don't remember where it's from now. I don't quite catch the reference. So
cheese about you, boy. Like, I'm trying to think. Yeah.
Well, meanwhile, while you think, let's move on to the next one here.
It must have been a quote from something we were talking about earlier. It was probably one of the Disney movies, I think. Was it not Treasure Island, was it? Patrick Robinson says, is Blumhouse involved in a Cujo remake? There's a page for an untitled Blumhouse movie on IMDb. When I opened it, there was a poster that said Cujo. Could be. 'Cause I do know that that was one of like almost all of Stephen King's movies went back into retroactive remake mode as soon as it hit big. When It 2 didn't do nearly as well, I know some of them tapered off, but we've gotten a lot of them already, like The Children of the Corn and a few other ones. I do remember hearing rumblings about this, so I would not be surprised. Not be surprised in the least. Does it need a remake? No. First one was fine. You're never going to get a kid in D. Wallace to do as I can't remember that kid's name now. He's even famous. He was on Silver Spoons. Is it Ricky Schrader? Is that what I'm thinking of?
I've got the name, but I just can't.
I think that's who it was. The kid in the first one and the original one. I mean, that movie did fine. Like, to me, I've read the book. The movie pretty much nails everything you need out of that book. You don't need to expand upon it. There's nothing in there that needs. Like, they did a great job as it was then. So I don't see a reason for it. I mean, yeah, some of the things were a little different, obviously, but I mean, no, it was a kid from Who's the Boss. Yeah, that's right. It was a kid from Who's the Boss. I can't remember his name though. Danny Bentero or something like that. Yeah, okay.
Right.
It was one of those kids.
Yep.
I knew it was one of them. Thank you for correcting me,
There was like
chat.
6 kids in that movie. So
yeah, but I think he even got heat stroke during the making of that. Remember right? Because they were in the car so damn much. But yeah, no, I haven't heard about that necessarily specifically, but I had heard rumblings about a remake, so would not be surprised at all. Pinochet's helicopter tours says with another 5, financially and credibility wise, can establish at media today, even control a narrative and pull off a Gamergate Part 2. Consumers ignore the sites already. You know what, Pinochet? I think if Elon Musk did not own Twitter, possibly. I think that is the one major factor between us, which we're just a small puddle in a huge pond, right? But you got that huge pond is taken up by quite a bit of like Elon Musk is somebody who can get a lot of notice. And I've noticed that. Have you not noticed that since he took over X, a lot of the media has crumbled and crippled itself?
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that, because it was artificially boosted. It was created some level of you were able to create this false oppression that the minority were the majority. So they got all this additional funding and stuff like that. And yeah, you are right, Tom. This is a very apt observation. That the moment when they lost that propaganda outlet, all of these other outlets just started to crumble as well. They would have anyway, because there was never any real interest there. They never made money, but I do believe that it accelerated the collapse when Twitter was no longer there to support their messaging and back them up and retweet them and stuff like that. When they don't have that, when you have to rely on the other stuff and they don't have the same install base, it's too many bots and everything, you're not going to get anything going. This is a very good question and a very good answer. I think that we absolutely would be in a Gamergate 2 narrative right now if Musk hadn't acquired Twitter and taken that propaganda outlet away. And now instead you have reality, which goes against them.
And I mean, we've seen how bad Facebook was infected, right? I got to imagine Twitter was just as bad or worse. So.
Yeah, it still is. Twitter was even worse.
Right. And I think that's one of the main things. Like, yeah, it's as much as we hate to, I mean, as much as we say that Twitter and certain things aren't real life, for the longest time, that media used those outlets like a propaganda tool that made it seem like that was the rule of the land, right?
And
they
that
controlled the community notes and all that shit.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now it no longer does.
Yeah, and having Elon Musk out there is kind of a, for better or worse, just kind of somebody going, nope, this has got to be free-flowing information. That's kind of opened the doors to us being able to talk about this stuff, because we can't even really technically still talk about a lot of this stuff on YouTube yet, but we can on, I can go out and say just about anything I want on X now. Right.
Yeah, it's more of a traditional speaker's corner, right? Where you can see the people that have something important to say, and then you can also see the town drunks and loony bins as well. They're all there. It's up to you to disseminate,
right,
which is what is important. I think that's a nice nudge in the right direction.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but at least I can go out and call Anita Sarkeesian a see you next Tuesday and not get worried about being banned anymore. Just that specific tweet will be limited. That's all. See, that's all it takes. Yeah. But now, you know, even a few months ago, I'd get banned. I did not too long ago, but I won my appeal. So there you go. Kalekioki sends in 5 and says companies should take the Sega route. 60 people worked on Sonic Frontiers. That was a success, granting Sonic Team a slightly higher budget for next. Yeah. Well, here's the thing I don't understand about the gaming industry. This is kind of goes off of what I was saying earlier. And this is, I'm glad you brought this up, Kalecki, and I'm going to try to keep this as tight as I can. Mario, Sonic, these types of games, they would pump one out every year or two, right? And even then, they were still innovating in between the games, but they weren't changing the formula every time. This taking 5-6 years in between a game every time and relying too much on the online stuff, that's what I think, frankly, where they screwed themselves. It's almost like they did their own streaming deal with the online gaming, I think. Because, I mean, it used to be you had to buy every new year of Madden just to get the new updates and all that kind of stuff. Like, why would I buy a new Madden every few years when, frankly, last time I could remember, when the new roster would come out, I could just go download it now, right? And it would be there in the game. So, like, and they didn't innovate that game anymore either. So, like, those games kind of fell off. And then when you have, like, GTA games where you literally got 5, 6, 7 years in between each game and they cost so goddamn much, and it's not just GTA, that's every big major, you know, game now. It's like, of course you're not going to be able to sustain yourself like this. You need the disc-based. You need certain other things. You need to be able to sequelize a game and use it to its maximum potential until it's played out and you come up with something different, right? I mean, I just don't get this. So, I mean, the first 3 Sonic games are basically the same game, right? Same thing with Mario. Sure, there's a little innovation in between each one, but they didn't rewrite the book each time to where it would take them forever to put these games out. And I don't understand this. And I mean, I get it. They're a lot more complicated now than they were in those days.
And also, it takes a lot more people to go out and have lattes and to relax and play foosball and stuff like that in the game rooms, in their super expensive offices and stuff like that, because they're in the tech industry and there's bloat and they waste money.
Well, here you go. 50 people worked on Vice City. Okay, that was 20 years ago. How many people right now are working on GTA 6? I bet you it's in the couple hundreds, or at least 200 some people.
Many more than what's needed, that's for sure.
That's what I'm saying. I may be a little off, but I don't know as much about games, but all I'm seeing is just looking at this. Now there's 300 plus people working on a C. That's what I was thinking. That's fucking ridiculous.
And most of those people, not all of those people are actually working on it. Some of them are out having coffees and stuff like that.
Speaking of, Abdulio says that Chris guy from Sweet Baby had their account suspended after calling Teriyama a racist just a few hours ago. Oh, I didn't hear about this, but yeah, Sweet Baby is another example of where the money's going for people who aren't really doing anything. In fact, they're actually anything. They're just ruining your game.
Yeah, they are.
Thousands, they're saying in the chat, are working on GTA 6. My God.
Jeez, that's too many.
That reminds me of when everybody says, well, what's wrong with movies today and what's wrong with special effects and stuff? Well, I said, well, one thing is the original Jurassic Park had 52 special effects shots done with CGI in it. The last one had like 5,200. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I'm not far off. Right. I just said that just so.
No, there's too much reliance on the digital post-production aspects.
It is like
3,000 hefty price tag. I mean, again, we've talked about Godzilla -1 many times since its release, and how effective it is when you have a director and producer coordinating with a tight team to have specifically required effects shots, as opposed to using it to fix the mistakes that have been done in camera that could have been avoided with a bit more prep and due diligence.
Indeed. And then we've got Abdulio again sending in $10. Thank you so very much. Says FF7 Rebirth being 22% down in sales from FF16 might be due to the being a bait and switch. People wanted a remake of Final Fantasy VII. What they got was a hidden sequel that's a multiverse alternate timeline mess. Yeah, I remember there was some confusion, I guess, about this at first, because people at first thought it was going to be a remake and not a complete. And didn't they change the name? Because wasn't it initially called like something like Reboot or something like that? And
well,
then
they added some like Resurrected or something like that.
Well, and now it's called Rebirth instead of Reboot. Yeah. Or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but anyway. Vin Maru, the Fool, that's an interesting name, sends in $10. I love all these new faces here. But they must not be that new, because Vin Maru knows about Bat Tom. Says, I know this is our outside usual request, but I'd like to know, is Bat Tom what is best in life? To see your enemies driven before you. To hear the lamentation of the women, and to punch Joker in his fucking ugly face. That's what's best in life.
Yeah. I think we can all stand behind that one.
I forget what the other thing was. When I think of the Joker, I want to punch him in his face. He's always laughing at me. Stop. What are you laughing about? I'm scary. Shut up. Anyway, moving on. I'm out of here. Pinochet's helicopter tour says society heals itself, counterculture pushes back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sonic
Very
times
hard
2,
to
Sonic
disagree
times
with
2. Yeah. Sends in $5. Says, what up? Midnight's Edge. Thoughts on Hillary Swank not returning for Cobra Kai season 6? I have not heard this. I'd be surprised if she didn't.
Me too.
I wonder if it's a misdirect.
Because
she's acting again, which is weird. Well, they had talked about her every year. And all of a sudden, she's acting again out of nowhere. So like,
she's acting out of nowhere. But I think she was asked, and she says if they asked her, she'd be happy to do it. I remember something of that line coming from her in an interview.
And considering they had what's her face from part 3 in it, I can't believe they wouldn't.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember her name. The Teen Witch chick.
Here's the other part too. So the team behind Cobra Kai, not only do they have great success with Cobra Kai, but they have another series on Netflix called Obliterated that was very popular. Everybody wants to work with them. I would be hard pressed to believe that Hillary Swank wouldn't return for a Cobra Kai season 6 or anything if she was asked by these two guys.
She might not even. They're still in the midst of shooting it, as far as I know. So it may be, may not have even come to the table yet. So who knows?
Or maybe it's just a misdirect, so that can actually be a surprise.
That's what I was saying, is misdirect.
I'm hoping. Yeah, I'm on your side with that. Yeah.
Because I don't see why there's any reason they wouldn't, at least for somewhat of a cameo. But maybe they
did with Terry Silver for a good bit there too. Remember?
Yeah, yeah. And as I said, it would make sense at this point now to bring her in, especially now. Not to get into the whole thing, but yeah, it just I think it would. John Thomas sends in 10. Side Scrollers had a great breakdown of Gamergate and how it links to Sweet Baby Inc. Also, there is a consulting group, Black Girl Gamers. Yeah, nothing racist about that. Yeah, I think they're on that list. Remember,
they are on the list.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then Jesus Davila gifted a membership. Thank you, Jesus. Speaking of members, Mr. Tickle Trunk, who's also a wrench, has been here for 35 months. Holy crap. Says Cabrutus, the Sweet Baby Ink detector guy, is Fested Games.
Yes,
D.E.I. detected.com, still under construction. Yeah, but what we're saying is he should add not just games to that, but movies, television shows, production companies,
Well,
other
baby
products like
steps.
Bud Light. Yeah.
I'm very, very happy with this just starting in gaming. Like, focus on
Yeah.
that. Get the gamers woken up, because again, I agree with you that gaming is not becoming something that's going to replace theaters in terms of like box office draw. But there's so many gamers that, and if gamers just suddenly stop supporting woke stuff, that's going to be pretty huge. It's going to be major, and then you can do everything else afterwards. But one thing at a time. If you're going to do everything all at once,
yeah.
you're going to be overwhelmed.
I agree with you. The gamers could bring the gaming industry to its knees a hell of a lot quicker than we could Hollywood.
Exactly.
Hell of a lot quicker. And that's all you guys got to do is just say, no, we're not going to fucking buy it. Boom. Psh, done.
Well, not only that, like gamers are far more interactive with the product than audiences are with movies. It's
yes.
With movies,
Look
it's
at what
kind of one and
Hogwarts
done. With gaming.
And
it's
Hogwarts
over
is
and
a
over.
great example, and Suicide Squad are two great examples of how you guys can swing into action real quick and make a difference. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there at the end script. But yeah.
No, but you're absolutely right. Because again, with games, you're playing them for hours, ideally. And in some cases, you're playing them for months or years. So there's a huge investment on your part that actually has a direct response to the gaming developer and the hoster as the servers hosting those games. So yeah, all you have to do is just be like, you turn in, you pay your money. If you don't like it, you immediately get your refund right away. And the company that manufactured that game will see the peak and the valley with regards to the quality of their game. They'll know whether they succeeded or not. And any of their investors will be able to see that as well. So you have a way quicker turnaround to change things on that type of platform than you have in Hollywood. Hollywood is basically on 4 to 6 year cycles. And it's always going to be that way. Games, they can make an about face within 4 to 6 months.
Yeah. Exactly.
Neil says at script, old school Muppets and Sesame Street. Good luck finding old Sesame Street.
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, like the Muppet Show, easy to find. There's
easier
a lot
to find, yeah.
things. Sesame Street, God, that's a nightmare. I mean, PBS doesn't even do old reruns anymore, and they used to way back. They'd have their live show, and then they'd show in the afternoon they'd show a repeat from maybe a year ago or something of that nature. But like, yeah, it's hard finding old school Sesame Street.
Yeah, new Sesame Street I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
I'd have better luck finding like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego and the Ghostwriter learning how to read show.
Yeah. Well, Andre has to check out here, although we're pretty close to the end of Super Chats.
Yeah, I have to do this one real quick. Okay. Nelson Chanetta says, Andre, forget Batman. What is best in life? Well, it's still to crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of their women. And I will add, though, that punching Joker in the face is pretty sweet, and so is hearing the lamentation of Sweet Baby Ink.
Yeah. There you go. All right, Andre. Well, we'll see you, I'm sure, on Monday, if not before then.
Yeah, and we'll have videos dropping in the meantime. So yeah, just hang in there. We have a few more super chats, but I just have to run here. So all right, take care, everyone.
Yeah, just a couple more here. Accident Seller sends in 50 Norwegian krona and says, for script doctor off topic, Biden's we got this
did
one
this
already.
one, I think.
Yeah, we did. That was when I got it before. That's right. Tennille says, Jaffe's approach worked so well for James Franco and with Amber Heard. How could it go wrong?
Oh.
Ooh. Yeah.
Mark's
47. Yeah, has been here for 35 months. Thank you so much. Mark's 47. Holy cow. It's crazy. Wolven Weavers sends in 5 and says gamers are already shifting their buying habits towards smaller titles, stuff like Palward, Helldivers 2, etc. Well, there you go. But you guys can help swing the pendulum in gaming a hell of a lot quicker than any of us could in movies. And yeah, part of it's because movies and television are a much broader audience. There's a much faster turnaround rate. There's so many reasons for that.
Yep.
We have Snail Messiah, who's been here for 33 months. Thank you for that. Yeah. Oh, John Thomas reminds us of the electric company with Morgan Freeman. I believe you may be able to find that on YouTube. I think there's at least a couple episodes on it.
Yeah, there's even YouTube channels that replay old Saturday morning cartoon TV blocks. So from like the 6:30 to 11 o'clock or 6:30 to noon, I think, cartoon blocks, you can find those. And it's the same episodes they were aired, 30 years ago at that point. I'm like, that's a great channel. I
I've seen those.
Subscribe to it, but those are great. They had Ninja Turtles on the other day. It was like, I remember those. like those
Well,
classic ones.
And
Because
they
don't
get as
have
many of the commercials and stuff as they can too, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean that is a big throwback. You get to see what commercials were like when they were interesting commercials.
Indeed. So with that, Script Doctor has a Patreon. Check that out. He also has a channel. You do a show on Saturdays. Go ahead and plug it.
Yeah, Script on Saturdays. Tomorrow at 7:00, I've got Price of Reason coming on to discuss a screenplay about a girl so obsessed with trying to get into law school that she's willing to kill to do it. So come check out that discussion tomorrow. It'll be fun because we're seeing the types of movies everybody in the chat and everyone listening want to see. We're seeing the scripts of these out there. And there's a lot of producers that want to make them, but there's not a lot of studios that want to put money behind them. And perhaps something like this type of discussion will get more people aware of them. And ideally, I mean, in the long run, not now, because it's a very new show. In the long run, it might actually be a nice little angle to help, re-diversify the things that matter when it comes to diversity, which is different types of stories, things that are original, things that are fun for audiences to go and patron.
All right, so check that out. And you'll find me all sorts of places. Maybe I'll pop on to Mead Radio here in a little bit if one of the mods wants to share the link for that. Otherwise, I'm sure I'll pop up on karaoke later or somewheres. You never know. Otherwise, for sure, tomorrow night, I got the Salty Nerd podcast, I believe, tomorrow. And I believe I got Gary's show over on Pop Culture Minefield as well. So hopefully we see you guys there. And thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk, for sharing the link. In fact, I just got the new Tenacious D Hit Me Baby One More Time from Kung Fu Panda.
I heard that. That's the first time I've heard that song in completion, because I've always heard bits and pieces of the Britney Spears version because it's used for advertising all over. Never heard the whole thing all the way through. First time, I'm glad I heard it from Jack Black. He made it fun.
Oh, that song was huge when I was in college. So
I remember it was huge. I just never had the fortune of actually sitting down listening
in
to
radio
the
school. So what they would do is they'd actually literally just throw us whatever the latest radio discs were, and they'd make us sit there for about an hour and just run a thing just to for practice or whatever. And they would give us we'd also have to follow a run list, and I would never fail because it was always the top whatever songs, and I would bitch about that every time to the teachers and the instructors. I'd be like, it'd be nice if you guys you guys are actually music fans. At least you could do.
Do is spice it up.
My teacher, she goes, well, you're gonna have to learn to listen to shit you don't like. So
I mean, that's good preparation in that regard. Yeah,
she wasn't wrong. I mean, because my first job was at an AC country station. It's like, oh my god, like anyway, I've got so many stories, but we're gonna get out of here, folks. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you very, very soon. It's time for, as Andre says, koalas in the ring.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given, koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given, koalas in the rain.